This is
NK
Nja,
Books.
the second young master of group finance, currently serving as the group's deputy general manager. The role you'll take is his assistant.
Aboard the helicopter, Yuan Xiaoxiao introduced for Yun Han. Hello.
Yun Han greeted politely, then asked, to work as an assistant, don't I need training first? None of that matters, being quick, diligent, and obedient is enough. Nja said carelessly.
Yun Han asked again, where are we going now?
A remote small town, Yuan Xiaoxiao replied, its location is pretty good, and Group Finance wants to acquire it and develop it into a tourist village. The others already flew there by business class 2 days ago. The boss is a deputy GM, he doesn't need to do everything himself, but he still has to make a trip to oversee progress.
Yun Han was puzzled, he's a deputy GM, so why do you call him boss?
The form of address felt off. Yuan Xiaoxiao paused, then smiled like a flower. Let me reintroduce, I'm his private bodyguard. Yesterday I moonlighted as an interviewer just to hire a pleasing-to-the-eye assistant for the boss.
Lie. I see. Yun Han nodded, pretending to believe. Only, in this situation, is her boss Nja, or the in-group finance president?
After thinking a long while and still not figuring it out, Yun Han simply asked directly. Nja said, you're my person, I pay your salary, so you can call me boss. If that feels awkward, deputy GM is fine.
Alright, boss.
Since Nja was the one who recruited her, he ought to take responsibility. Yun Han would not accept anyone swapping her at will. After more than 1 hour, the helicopter touched down. The three first went to the inn to drop their luggage, then strolled the town. After a bit they met colleagues, Nja asked about work progress, then the colleagues went back to burying their heads in work while the new boss kept swaggering about. Yun Han noticed this new boss didn't do anything proper at all, perhaps the most important task he handled was not adding trouble to others. Oddly, from the moment she stepped on this land, Yun Han felt an indescribable awkwardness, yet her early warning ability didn't react. In other words, something was off here, but it wouldn't harm her. Considering that the new boss, the bodyguard miss, and the colleagues all had pale gray mist on them to varying degrees, Yun Han asked, do we have to secure this parcel and turn it into a tourist village?
Of course.
Nja answered without hesitation.
Instead, Yuan Xiaoxiao asked, what's wrong?
Looking at passers-by shrouded in sooty haze, Yun Han told the truth, it doesn't feel good. Residents of this town were wrapped in blackish mist, it looked unlucky at a glance. Before development, the group invited people to take a look, they all said no problem.
How sharp are you, really? Stronger than those espers?
Clearly, Nja didn't believe. Hearing that, Yun Han wanted to ask who exactly he had invited. How could they miss something this obvious? Were they waterlogged fakes? But before she could speak, Nja caught sight of something, and cried out in delight, Tu Due.
Yun Han?
She turned and saw a familiar face behind her. Lu Gi beamed, and the lie came out smoothly, this is my brother. He happened to be free, so he came to play for a couple of days. Yun Han looked at Lu Gi, at Tu Due, then at Nja and Yuan Xiaoxiao. Finally her gaze returned to Tu Due.
How is this possible? Why are you here?
Tu Due pressed his lips and said nothing.
Reason told him he should accept Lu Gi's story and find a random excuse.
If he confessed that Yun Han was being tailed by Nja because of him, and might face danger later, points would definitely get deducted. He had worked so hard to accumulate points, finally got promoted to be Han Han's official boyfriend, but
Nja is my former employer.
Tu Due confessed. I resigned months ago. Afterward he called several
times hoping I'd return.
I refused, he still wouldn't give up and went and hired you. People calling before an ex-employee is normal, I didn't know he'd go this far. With that, Tu Due looked at Nja and said coldly, since I'm here, let her go.
All right.
Nja agreed readily, without thinking. Facing Yun Han, Tu Due lowered his voice, you go first.
Yun Han, are you two running a bait and release bit here? I have other matters, I can't leave yet. Han, please.
Tu Due grew anxious. Calm down, Yun Han sighed, if danger shows up, I'll run, I know my limits.
I don't want you to get hurt because of me.
Tu Dui said, since he started this, he should finish it. Then, seeing her little pup about to cry, Yun Han yielded a step. You two handle your business, I'll travel this town alone, we won't meddle in each other's affairs.
Tu Dui hesitated, then agreed.
And Ji immediately said, Miss Yun, I'm sorry to have dragged you in. This is my bodyguard, Yuan Xiaoxiao.
It's not safe to tour the town alone these days, why not let her accompany you?
All right. Yun Han thought she happened to need someone to ask questions. If someone offered themselves, it would be a waste not to use it.
With Yuan Xiaoxiao accompanying, Yun Han left for the moment.
And Jia could not suppress his joy. Tu Dui, you're finally back. Tu Dui's pupils, however,
brimmed with killing intent. Do you still remember what you said when I left?
And Jia feigned innocence. My memory's poor, I forgot. Forgetting isn't important, I'll remind you, Tu Dui enunciated. You said you had plenty of bodyguards, that it didn't have to be me. On the contrary, leaving such a good employer as you was my loss, and I shouldn't regret it.
I was wrong.
And Jia admitted decisively, I was stupid, I was naive, those bodyguards are useless, a crowd of them can't compare to you. You have no idea how miserable I've been since you left, many times I almost died. While Zhou went on, Tu Dui only wanted to roll his eyes. On the way, Lugi told me there are 5 days until the Esper prediction that you will die. For 5 days I'll protect you, after 5 days, don't interfere with my path.
No problem.
And Jia agreed with his mouth full. Elsewhere, Yun Han returned to the inn to get her luggage, then, arranged by Yuan Xiaoxiao, moved into a homestay.
NK Books. After settling in, she shut the door. Chat with me. Yuan Xiaoxiao was quite surprised. About what?
Plenty I'm curious about, start with what I most want to know.
Yun Han sat and eased into small talk. Why did you come for me?
Eyes glittering, Yuan Xiaoxiao smiled and answered, after Tu Dui resigned, the boss kept missing him. Upon learning you two were together, we tried every way to invite you here, hoping to use your face to talk with Tu Dui. Don't blame the boss, he was cornered and anxious, so he used this last resort. Recently he's been so unlucky, and an Esper even commented that a great calamity would arrive in a few days. Yun Han was doubtful. If he's unlucky, why not stay home and wait it out? Useless, Yuan Xiaoxiao said. We tried holing up at home. A glass chandelier on the ceiling suddenly fell. At dinner, there turned up unknown wild greens in the dish. They proved to be poisonous herbs, and afterward no one could find how they got in. Because of fear he slept poorly and wanted sleeping pills. After taking them we were told it was a sleeping pill bottle, but inside were other drugs. A while ago, he was even attacked in revenge by an Esper. After subduing the other side we realized they'd got the wrong person. Finishing, Yuan Xiaoxiao was helpless. Yun Han reacted, a bad luck entanglement debuff? Right, Yuan Xiaoxiao nodded, I don't know why, others aren't this severe, only he hits streak after streak of misfortune, everything finds him. Hearing that, Yun Han sighed again and again. Yuan Xiaoxiao thought she would say, the boss is so pitiful. Unexpectedly, Yun Han said, you're really good at blurring the point. Yuan Xiaoxiao blinked, what? I'm praising how good you are at lying. Yun Han propped her chin. When the chandelier fell, besides the boss, did it hurt anyone else? Yuan Xiaoxiao laughed, of course not. Lie. Yun Han asked on, a bad luck entanglement not only affects the person but can implicate those nearby, did you know? Yuan Xiaoxiao was shocked, there's such a thing? I've never heard of it. Lie. Yun Han pressed, though you sought me only to lure Tu Dui out, did you consider that if the boss runs into trouble I might be dragged in? Yuan Xiaoxiao smiled to soothe her, you arrived and Tu Dui came right after, with so little time in between, nothing will happen. Lie. A bodyguard can rely on skill to escape, an assistant without powers, when trouble comes, can only wait for death. For the 4th time, Yun Han asked, did you know the assistant role is dangerous, knew I might die, and still brought me in? How could I watch you die? If anything happens, I'll surely save you. Yuan Xiaoxiao hurried to defend.
Answer directly, Yun Han asked again. Did you know the assistant role is dangerous, and still brought me in? Yuan Xiaoxiao smiled helplessly, as if laughing at her for overthinking. No lie.
One last question, Yun Han asked the fifth time, and had you follow me. Protection is fake, surveillance is real. Yuan Xiaoxiao said, no, you misunderstand.
Lie.
5 questions, 5 lies, not a single true word in that mouth.
Yun Han laughed in anger, helping the wrong side yet daring to play innocent in front of me? Looks like you need a lesson. With that, she lashed out with a kick.
Yuan Xiaoxiao grimaced, clutching the shin that took the blow, stunned speechless. She couldn't believe Yun Han moved so fast she only saw an afterimage.
I usually don't use force unless the other side goes too far, Yun Han said with a blank face.
Yuan Xiaoxiao couldn't help stepping back. For a heartbeat she even thought of bolting for the door. After a few deep breaths, she barely calmed, forcing a smile. Think it over, what the boss did is forgivable in feeling, understandable in reason.
I don't understand. Yun Han cut her off. Yuan Xiaoxiao? Why doesn't this person play by common sense? Yuan Xiaoxiao froze.
I keep to myself and never plot against others, so I can't understand, Yun Han said seriously, and I'm small-minded. I don't want to easily forgive anyone who schemes against me.
If you're broad-minded, then you shoulder it. Yuan Xiaoxiao. Don't come any closer.
A moment later, Yuan Xiaoxiao was tied to a chair, her whole body fixed at several points. Any slight move tugged muscles and hurt everywhere. She was about to go mad, with one thought filling her mind. Was Tu Dui's girlfriend picked by combat power standard or what? Why does she look even better at fighting than Tu Dui himself? After being beaten, Vin Hu turned honest, no longer dared to lie, and even before Van Han asked she volunteered details with a candid tone. The boss didn't leave home of his own will, his parents threw him out, he moved out before, but a dozen bodyguards were badly wounded or killed, even the sous chef, the cleaning auntie, and the driver who delivered supplies every so often were each dragged into trouble. After facing death too long, the boss's mind went off, so his parents pushed him to go away for a while. A remote town far from neighborhoods is a decent place to unwind. Don't think the boss found you because Tu Dui slipped up. Before he ever mentioned having a partner, the boss already knew he lived with someone. Even if Tu Dui said nothing, the boss would still have found you. She both excused herself and dumped all blame on the boss, even smoothing things for Tu Dui. After several brushes with death, the boss's temper flipped and he started using any means. Tu Dui's been gone long, he doesn't know the inside story and thinks the boss is as before.
Van Han slanted her a look. If the boss is that rotten, why still follow him? I owe him and can't leave. If he goes down, I go down, she said. By then Van Han roughly grasped the picture and said coolly, behave. If you bolt and I catch you again, I won't vouch for what I'll do. I get it. Vin Hu bobbed her head. Tu Dui has an ability. If he knows a person's name, looks, and identity, he can locate them, with up to 3 chances in a day. I know all that, so I won't be foolish and run. Being able to lock a target and refresh up to 3 times a day means you can't really escape. She wouldn't court hardship. Van Han was a little startled. She'd never heard of his locating gift. Go on, what else do you know about him? He has an early warning ability. He can sense the safety status of assigned targets, limited to 3 people, she said. His temper is foul and he repays grudges, but if unprovoked he won't bully others. Van Han kept her face calm. Biting her lip, Vin Hu sold another secret. I heard he once said, whatever the one he likes prefers, that's what he'll be. Outwardly calm, Van Han thought, is this girl a walking treasure chest? How does she know everything? The girl rushed to add, it's true. Later someone teased him, asked what his beloved likes. He said, likes obedient. For a while everyone thought he liked men. Van Han fell silent. She might be 100 million heiress with simple tastes, so what? It must be obedient, shallow, fine. She admitted it, and would do it again. Wait in the room and be good. Banter with Vin Hu was too stimulating. Van Han feared she'd sink into it and waste time, so she stood to get things done. Tu Dui's partner equaled the one in his heart, and that one liked obedience. I'm super obedient, I'll stay put and not go anywhere, the girl shouted loyalty, making Van Han almost feel she'd brought home a stray vying for favor.
The whole residential area was wreathed in black haze. Van Han had seen this before. After her grandmother died, she went out to ease her grief and, because of bad water, residents around fell ill from the rain. Heavy metal poisoning is slow, and by the time she noticed, the poisoning was deep, the haze everywhere, so she misjudged the cause at first. Once burned, twice wise. With that experience she went straight to the water, beginning by asking the homestay owner, "Is the town's water poor?" The owner froze, meant to gloss it over, then remembered the whole town would soon be bought for a resort, so honesty hardly mattered, and sighed. "Upstream there's a chemical plant that dumps into the river. Sometimes when folks open the tap the water smells odd. At first we were scared and didn't use it, later nothing obvious happened and we got used to it."
"Doesn't the government intervene?" Van Han asked.
"They do, many." Residents complained. They sent teams to the plant and the treatment works, but round after round found nothing wrong. Standards met, people cried fake and the teams were replaced. Investigated again, same result. The matter just stalled. Everyone says the plant must be secretly dumping, but no one can catch it, so they gave up. Now that the town's to be turned into a resort, the upstream plant will be bought too, which is good. Everyone will be freed. Because of this many refuse tap water. Some dig wells, some pump groundwater, yet no matter the method the water still smells.
Van Han asked for the plant's address. It was far with no easy route, so she sent Vien Hu Hu to fetch a car and the girl volunteered to drive, plainly afraid of being hunted down later. Van Han hadn't decided what to do with her or the so-called boss, so she said, "You drive," silently noting that if she drove poorly, old and new debts would be tallied together. After half an hour, Van Han suddenly said, "No need," turned back, startling the driver, who timidly asked if she'd erred. "Nothing to do with you, I just don't want to go," Van Han said. The farther from town and the closer to the plant they got, the more the knot in her chest unraveled, so the source wasn't at the plant. Back in town, she changed tack, going door to door about oddities in daily life. A child suddenly broke out in rashes and convulsions with no family history, another had daily headaches and occasional muscle twitches, someone had suffered multiple miscarriages and could hardly conceive, had one child who died of a rare kidney disease at 7. As misfortunes mounted, people realized it wasn't coincidence but environmental trouble causing long-term residents to fall ill. Some said kitchen sinks often reeked of chemicals, backyards often leaked strange smells, flowers were hard to keep alive, pets died strangely, children kept getting skin disease. Part of the town panicked. Years of residents had numbed them to danger, but once they glimpsed the truth, fear surged and they wanted to act. Another part shrugged that the in-group would soon buy the place and everyone would move, so the cause didn't matter, and the rest were persuaded, the matter seeming to drop. Night fell with rain. Van Han watched the drizzle through the window, a terrible feeling growing as her personal danger alert rated the situation at level D. Using her power more, she'd learned the alert was scaled to her own strength, so if it was D for her it might be C for others. Even Vien Hu Hu tried to soothe her. "Soon the whole town will be torn down and rebuilt. Even if we can't nail the cause, it won't matter." But Van Han knew that if they didn't find the truth, any resort built would likely be unlivable. Watching the rain, she had an idea. After the rain, instead of a fresh grassy scent, the air was laced with an irritating tang. Quietly she collected samples of tap water, groundwater, well water, rainwater, and river water, then covertly sent them for analysis. The results indeed found residual toxic chemicals. Because of the bad hunch from the rain, she also hired a check of the gutter and stormwater system, and to her shock investigators found large amounts of PCB there, a recognized contaminant that harms skin and liver, impairs brain development, and can cause cancer. The homestay owner was aghast. Where did the chemicals come from? Van Han couldn't yet answer. Gathering, investigating, and analyzing took time, and the real cause was still unclear. For days slid by, and it was almost time for Chu Dui to leave. "Stop bringing unrelated people in," he warned coolly. And Drake flipped the table. "I don't agree, you can't go." Murderous intent sparked in Tu Dui's eyes. Since hearing from Lu Gi that Van Han had been forced into being Drake's assistant, he'd wanted again and again to snap the man's neck, holding back only by reason, and now patience neared its limit, and Drake fanned the flames. "Don't forget, your beloved is in my hands. Vien Hu Hu is with her. If anything isn't cared for properly, well, sorry," he chuckled as if amused. The thread of reason snapped, and without a word Tu Dui removed Drake from his early warning list. Henceforth, if danger came, he would not sense it. If the man could break promises and exploit, he could also strip his bodyguard's shield and let an accident free him. "I'm going to the restroom," he said, leaving before a reply.
Watching him go, Entrake fumed. He does little but grows ever more insolent. Lugi, seething, urged, when the 1 month term's up, just fire him. But Entrake's face went green then white before he forced out, times have changed, keeping him is of great use, we can't, leaving Lugi speechless and contemptuous, burning with anger. Entrake grabbed a bottle of mineral water and swigged, only to double over in pain as sweat beaded. The innkeeper rushed in. How did you drink the groundwater sample I pumped up? 2 clear-looking bottles sat on the table, both opened, but the one in his hand was slightly viscous with a faint acrid whiff. Somehow he'd missed the warning signs and gulped. Less talk, get him to a hospital, Lugi shouted, and the innkeeper called an ambulance. After the commotion and the man was carried out, the innkeeper kept muttering, you mixed them up yourself, don't blame me. Only then did Tu Due show, and after hearing the story he recalled a power user's comment, bears the look of death if not dead then maimed, and sighed, sharp judge of people. Trying to bond, Veen Hu later told Van Han a joke, but laughed alone. Right then news came that someone had drunk a sample by mistake, and Van Han hurried to the inn. The first time she'd come with the boss she'd felt nothing special, but this time she felt guided by fate straight to the backyard. The sample was pumped groundwater. I didn't poison it, you have to clear me, the innkeeper babbled, and the homestay owner soothed. If you didn't do it, no one can frame you. Van Han said softly, I know where the chemicals came from, which made them all start. She pointed at the pump, under the ground. The innkeeper gaped. She asked to dig, promised compensation and even advanced a deposit, guaranteeing the probe wouldn't affect relocation. Reassured, the owner agreed. A crew with an excavator came and soon unearthed a great many metal drums. The moment lids were pried, an acrid reek punched the air. Tests showed the drums held chemical waste, and even after hauling some up, the ground below was still thick with countless drums. Everyone fell silent. Meanwhile, in the hospital Entrake was in bad shape, dizzy, bloated with abdominal pain, weak in all limbs, and his skin erupted. Preliminary exams said he'd inhaled PCB and that his liver, kidneys, and heart were compromised. With the extent pending deeper tests, he fainted under the strain, uneasy. Lugi remembered that about half a month ago the boss had eaten rotten nipa palm fruit and was saved only by forced vomiting, which had still harmed him. Now he'd swallowed PCB, could he hold out? Remembering the power user's words, dread grew, and he slipped out to call the in-group's eldest young master, the chief executive. No one knew how long Entrake was out before he woke. Lugi was gone, but Veen Hu was there. Why are you here? Weren't you watching Tu Due's beloved? Did she run? He croaked. Boss, you've been comatose for 3 days, she reported flatly, then added, Van Han found a vast cache of metal drums under the inn's backyard. Per investigation, decades ago before the town was built someone started a canal and abandoned it during an economic crisis. Later a factory took a fancy to the pit, packed chemical waste into metal drums and buried them, then covered with soil. Later the land changed hands and people raised houses and an inn and turned it into a town. Over time, chemicals seeped into basements and backyards, and movement of toxins followed rain and household drains, and even if you remove, fill, and cap, new migration can occur and spread the plume. Once exposed, the finance group halted the resort plan and pulled out, and Lugi followed the young master away with the work team. Shocked and enraged, Entrake tried to rise to curse that fair-weather friend, but his body was so weak he could barely sit. Save your strength, she said. The doctor says your liver is damaged and it will affect you for life, and with PCB your cancer risk rises greatly. Why, he howled in despair, I only took one mistaken gulp, why should my life be ruined? The townsfolk have lived here for many years. What about them, must they all get cancer? Staring at the ceiling, she said, in truth many adults are gravely ill, and more than half the children born here have birth defects, some with 3 ears, some with double rows of teeth, many with very low intellect. That misery brought him no comfort. Defiant still, he demanded, where was Tu Due? Why didn't he stop me? For the first time she felt the boss's brain was truly unhelpful. You threatened him with the one he loves, why would he save you? If you beg life from someone, that's not the way. Just then Tu Due pushed in. For all his bluster, when faced with the man himself Entrake shrank into the quilt and still barked, what are you here for? And Tu Due said, someone wants to see you. Stepping aside to reveal Van Han, she studied the patient for a while, then tilted her head and smiled, serves you right. I just admired his work and wanted to keep him. Why do you both hinder me? He snapped, and she sneered, you're a sideshow ringmaster now, openly coveting someone else's property. Entrake blinked, then rushed to lodge a complaint. She says you're her property, thinking the man would be angry and quarrel, which he could exploit. Instead, Tu Due nodded gravely, that's what I am, leaving Entrake stunned. You threaten, you renege, and you so harm people. Coming to take revenge is perfectly normal, so what baffles you? Van Han said without the least deference. You're just going to watch. He turned to Veen Hu in outrage. She paused, then asked Van Han, do you need help? And before Van Han could answer, Drake nearly passed out. So this is what it means to be abandoned by your circle. On the first night, Van Han chose to sleep in the tavern. Owner's authority, once activated, while the owner stands under the shop's name, they enter an invincible state. Below rank SSS, attacks are ineffective. Note, this is a universal authority. If the player later has other shops under their name, they will share this authority. The super security system stacked with owner's authority, so she slept like the dead without a shred of fear. At dawn she switched the tavern to open for business and herself strolled out to forage. A passing ghost saw the door open and gaped. Normally it opens at 10, why so early today? Then noticed the name had changed, no longer Yellow Springs Tavern but Salted Fish Tavern. Idle and curious, it went in for a drink. The decor looked brighter, a banner on the wall read liquor supplied in limited quantity. Guests place orders themselves, beside it a row of wooden mugs and a dozen drink dispensers. Flashy makeover, the passerby ghost muttered, pulling out a ghost star to test one dispenser. The machine swallowed the note at once and showed two choices: 1 cup of Fin liquor or 1 cup of New Nihon, with notes. Fin liquor carries a unique grain aroma, crisp on entry, lingering finish, and is not easy to get drunk on. New Nihon is pure in flavor but a strong liquor, very easy to get drunk, so you may buy a taster but are not advised to drink too. Taking the advice, the ghost picked Fin liquor. The dispenser indicated the customer should bring a wooden mug over, then poured exactly to 8 parts full. The ghost took a big sip, face lit with surprise. Fragrant, sweet, tasty. Then eyed the dispenser, curiosity brimming. If Fin liquor was this good, what would New Nihon taste like? The former proprietress, by habit, came as usual and only at the door remembered she had sold the place yesterday and this was no longer her turf. She meant to turn away but suddenly had nothing to do and nowhere to go, so she comforted herself that even if the shop was no longer hers she could still come as a customer, and walked in calmly. The tavern was packed, business seemingly unaffected, and even more fresh faces, as if better than before. You've already had 3 cups, it's my turn. 2 ghosts quarreled before a dispenser. What 3 cups? The ghost ahead snapped. The boss never limited how much. Buying many shows my means, holding my liquor shows my capacity and generosity. It grabbed the 8/10 full mug and drained it in one go, then paid again to refill, basically monopolizing one dispenser. The ghost behind fumed it had picked this station because the line was shortest, but the one in front kept guzzling, refusing to budge, so after a long wait it still hadn't had a single drink. Just my rotten luck, it decided to queue elsewhere, but the other lines were already long, no chance within a good many minutes. Anger flared and it longed to beat the hog and force a cut, but such thoughts stayed thoughts. It had just seen with its own eyes what happened to troublemakers in Salted Fish Tavern. Lightning strikes, a beating, tossed out the door, books. Then slinking away in shame, never daring to step in again. A ghost of standing could not end that way, so it pinched its nose and queued honestly. Seeing the orderly scene, the proprietress was stunned. Since when did the denizens of the ghost realm have such high civility? In the old days that was unimaginable. Just then it was an old patron's turn. Reading the text on the dispenser, he scoffed. What kind of lousy liquor limits a guest's fun? How can 2 cups lay you flat? How strong could it be? Proud of his drinking, he ordered 3 cups of New Nihon, planning to chug them under everyone's nose and slap the boss in the face. Gulp gulp, 1 cup down, his tongue grew thick. This liquor, isn't that fierce? The others, still arguing? Plainly tipsy already. Watch me take the second. With no sense of measure he lifted cup 2 and poured. Halfway through he hadn't finished when he crashed to the floor with a happy smirk, slipping straight into a swoon. The other old hands shook their heads. To get drunk in a tavern, are you not afraid of death? Best case your purse gets lifted and you wake with bruises. Worst case you get hauled off to be an extra dish at some ghost's afternoon tea. Oh dear, how did you fall? Let me help you rest. A customer hurried over at once. The others, though regretful, did not meddle. In a bizarre ghost world, minding oneself is already hard. Who has leisure to manage others? We may never see him again. One patron sighed when a bolt of lightning slammed down, frying the helpful ghost. The security system, like a blaring loudhailer, looped through the hall warning. No stealing or robbing guests' property, no harming guests on the premises. The would-be helper, the drinkers, seriously, is this place that earnest and responsible? Like this, everyone's goodwill toward the tavern will skyrocket. Some even exclaimed, play it like this and I am a customer for life. The proprietress felt complicated, though selling and seeing the shop flourish was good. such business standards would yank the whole industry's bar too high. How were other tavern keepers to survive? Cup after cup, the crowd turned glassy-eyed and wallets empty. That's it for today, one patron patted an empty purse and left reluctantly, only to run into two gangs of fire ghosts brawling over turf outside. Their leader, a giant ghost as tall as several stories, threw a punch that missed and instead demolished a roadside house. Good grief, the patrons sobered instantly and scuttled back inside, determined not to be out while others fought. Outside came the giant ghost's roars, then a fist halted over the tavern roof, making it shake. The remaining patrons dared not drink, glancing at one another. This ruckus is huge. Should we find a chance to run? Before they settled, the security system thrummed with warning: no attacking buildings. Warning! Leave within 5 seconds, or the system will activate safety protection. The giant ghost ignored it, still entangled with his foe, and again missed, punching a hole in Salted Fish Tavern's roof. Tick tick, the security system went berserk and hurled lightning like rain. Boom, the first bolt hit true. Bang, the second blasted the giant ghost's hairstyle to tatters. The third left him charred, the fourth drove him to one knee. The other fighters gaped and scrambled aside. The system didn't care and struck close to 10 bolts, beating the giant ghost bloody, then still refused to let go, haughtily demanding, compensate the shop's losses. Pay up. Pay up. The others, what in the world is this establishment? How can an A-rank ghost go down this easily? The drinkers, so the security system is that dangerous. When the thieves and cutters only took one zap before being ejected, the system was clearly holding back. Pay. You are not leaving without paying. The system tried to restrain the offender, but the target was too big to push into the warehouse. The urgent tick-tick sounded again. It decided to separate and confine the culprit at all costs. No escape. Hearing it, the giant ghost's hair stood on end. Who would understand that, in the heat of an election, he had simply wandered by seeking fame, hoping to fish in troubled waters and score some limelight, yet ended up half-crippled before he made a name. From now on people would call him, "That guy zapped stupid." How was he to be famous? Now he wanted nothing but to dig a hole and bury himself. Quit blasting, I'll pay. Name the amount, he shouted. The system rattled off an itemized tally: building damages, emotional distress compensation for guests, the system's lightning consumption, the giant ghost. Are these line items even? Reasonable. The system ignored him, muttered for a while, then announced, altogether 100,000 ghost stars. The giant ghost winced and didn't want to pay. The system said nothing, dropped another bolt. I'll pay. Stop, he whimpered and forked over 100,000 with trembling hands. Once the ransom was received, the system's tone grew plainly warmer. For maliciously attacking the premises, you are now blacklisted by Salted Fish Tavern. Please do not attempt to approach again. After such a thrashing, who would want to approach? Regaining freedom, the giant ghost fled headlong, shrinking himself to human size to blend into the crowd. With the crisis defused, the patrons clicked their tongues in. Ah, then one asked warily, just now, did it also charge compensation for the guest's emotional distress? Isn't that a pretext to fleece him, and you expect a cut? Another scolded. The front patron, exposed, gave a sheepish smile and drank to hide his shame. Unexpectedly, the security system announced, emotional distress compensation for guests, won 10,000 ghost stars. At the time of the incident there were altogether 50 guests inside. Each may collect 200 ghost stars, and it fired notes beside each guest as a signal to take them. Stunned at first, the drinkers then picked them up and some were moved to tears. It really shared. I could cry to death. Who'd have thought? Out for a drink, ran into two gangs brawling, and not only unharmed but also granted 200 ghost stars in subsidy. That is several days' wages. I used to think every roadside shop was the same. Now I will never think that again. A few diners exchanged looks and left in tacit agreement. In a corner the former proprietress, after watching the chain of events, was utterly shocked, leaving aside how strong the system was. Just its ways of winning hearts were too masterful. For a damaged corner of the building it demanded 100,000, then took 1/10 out to share with guests so they tasted sweetness and pledged loyalty, while pocketing the other 9/10. All ghosts present chose to forget that fact and cheer for the tavern. Only, yesterday she sold the tavern for less than half of 90,000. In less than a day it not only recovered costs but doubled profits. What was scarier, all of it was driven by the security system, not even the new owner themselves. Who on earth had she sold to? She fell into thought. Meanwhile, roaming nearby, Van Hunt suddenly received system prompts. Your shop, Salted Fish Tavern, under your name is under attack. Salted Fish Tavern, damage at about 18%. Please repair promptly. Repair cost 8,000 ghost stars. Salted Fish Tavern gained
Additional income. Funds plus 90,000 ghost stars Van Han, huh? Booming on day 1, the giant ghost says he will not join the square's election. Ji Fuang Tran frowned. To boost the chainsaw doctor onto the seat, he had schemed hard, first faking an assassination in coma for the doctor to divert rivals' eyes, then finding the giant ghost to flatter and lure into play. The plan was to have the giant ghost and the pig-head demon maul each other to mutual harm so the chainsaw doctor could reap the fisherman's profit, but the giant ghost fell flat the moment he entered. He's A rank at least, how can he be this useless, he griped, unaware the giant ghost had taken heavy hits to both body and purse. Beside him the comatose chainsaw doctor opened his eyes, sprang up, what now? Ji Fuang Tran swore, if this plan fails, we change it, no matter what, I will set you firmly on the square's seat. No Nin had meant to find another leader, so she turned into mist and slipped to the Yellow Springs clinic to scout, only to be stunned on arrival. Yikes, filthy stuff in her eyes. Once Van Han paid the repair fee the tavern self-healed, good as new. She did not hurry back but wandered, hunting suitable ownerless properties. As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. Because the candidate's struggle was fierce, many shops in the area were smashed, even shopkeepers unlucky enough to die. After a while, Van Han frowned. I've asked around, not every election is this miserable, it's just that Yellow Spring Street happens to have no one who can convince the ghosts. Mahai Noyet emerged from some nook inside. The pig-head demon is rank S and violent. If it gains the upper hand the others suffer, so they are resisting desperately. If it were rank SS, the power gap would crush resistance, but it is only rank S, and a few A ranks together can kill an S rank, hence the unusual turmoil now. Van Han looked at her silently. No need to be so guarded. Mahai Noyet smiled wryly. I am only passing by, and as the standoff stretched, No Nin appeared at a distance, looking around. I am meeting someone, Mahai Noyet called, then hurried toward No Nin. How did those two end up mixed together? Van Han pondered 3 beats and let it go, so long as they did not drag her in. The second night passed as peacefully. Van Han lays like a salted fish and ignored the world. But for others, that night was fated to be long. On the 3rd day, proceed with the 49th check-in? Yes, check-in successful. In view of the player persisting for 30 days of check-ins, item rewards tripled in view of the player owning 4 properties, Salted Fish Sundry Shop plus Crimson Pear Court plus Obsidian Sundry Shop plus Salted Fish Tavern, item rewards multiplied by 5 in view of the player holding 6 territories, Peaceful Ghost Tower plus Ghost Realm 5 peaks, item rewards multiplied by 10, cap reached. Seeing the multipliers rise again, Van Han was satisfied and closed the prompt window. No sooner had it shut than a new one popped up. You have become one of the candidates for Yellow Spring Street Chief, currently 3rd by votes. Please continue to work hard. Van Han, speechless, opening the new dungeon's vote board. The slaughterhouse's pighead demon was 1st, the clinic's chainsaw doctor 2nd, herself 3rd, and no 4th name after. So they really did put my name up, she muttered. When she bought the tavern she had anticipated this might happen, but seeing prediction turned fact still left her conflicted. At dawn, No Nin's first act after rising was to check the candidate list and each vote tally. First to meet the eye was number 1, the pighead demon, far ahead barring surprises. The seat was basically his. Dead pig. Rotten temper, good at canvassing, she cursed within. Her gaze swept past number 2, chainsaw doctor, glanced over number 3, about to close the board when she froze, rubbed her eyes and stared at number 3, proprietor of Salted Fish Tavern. The frontal portrait above looked terribly familiar. The player Van Han. No Nin blanked a moment, then lay back down mumbling, booted wrong, let me restart. After a short rest she opened it again. The words had not changed. Still hanging there, she went silent, then started jumping on the bed in delight. I knew it, heaven does not cut off all roads. That morning Mahai Noyet opened the board, skimmed, then froze half a cup of tea, maintaining the same expression. I had planned to push some tavern boss to the top. Who it was did not matter. If players can buy industries in the ghost world, then a player becoming a candidate makes sense. A human in office is better than a cruel ghost. She tried to digest the shock yet could not help doubting, how did she even pull this off? That day Van Han traded as usual, except that before opening time a crowd of ghosts already waited at the door. This tavern's liquor, fierce in aroma, new Nihon, full in flavor. Fun liquor is good too, sip slowly, and you won't get drunk. Safety implementation inside is top tier, even drunk. You will be fine. Their praise was sincere, and they had plainly become Salted Fish Tavern's loyal fans. A savvy ghost could not stand it and warned, did none of you notice, after drinking your bellies feel taut and you don't feel hungry, the drinkers
Now that you say it, true, last night I took some home, had a few sips, dozed off in a blur, another stared. At night you were that hungry and still slept?
Probably because I was drunk.
So that's it. The savvy ghost should not have run his mouth. He turned away and focused on waiting for the door. At the hour of 8 the shop doors swung wide, officially open, no rushing. Step by step. There are altogether 10 dispensers, everyone will get a turn, yet they still shoved, each striking faster than the last. The savvy ghost avoided the scrum, chose a corner dispenser, set down the hip flask he had brought, and after payment the machine poured. Dissatisfied, he paid again. The machine poured a second time to fill it. Content, he stoppered it, then conjured another empty flask like a magic trick. The ghost behind gaped, "You staging a stock up here?" "None of your business." The savvy one filled one, swapped another, until 5 flasks were full. Anyone who saw could not help saying, "You're worried the tavern will close tomorrow, so you are hoarding, right? Why else buy so much? You folks are clueless, I cannot be bothered to explain." He lifted the rack and sauntered out. The ghost behind, baffled yet shaken that it only been an A-rank ghost, so he must have his reasons, imitated him and filled several bamboo tubes, those queued further back. "The two of you are colluding to keep us from getting a single machine, aren't you?" Crisis spread fast, worried that finishing a cup before buying more would mean there'd be none left. Everyone joined the buying frenzy. In under 1 short hour, all 10 dispensers were empty. Latecomers wailed, "Damnation! How did you strike so fast? Salted Fish Tavern?" A passing ghost had already walked by the tavern, but a glance caught the sign and it doubled back. "Peaceful Ghost Tower's first floor hosts a salted fish general store." Could it be a chain? With a curious itch it stepped in. Custom vending machines? No, this is a tavern, so they are drink dispensers. The place is outfitted with a super safety system. Customers are absolutely safe. Indeed, it saw with its own eyes a troublemaking ghost struck by lightning and thrown out. The food on sale is super filling. Can firm up the belly and clear the mind. Awesome. It did not need to test anything itself. Just looking at the crowd of ghosts chugging and buying like mad was enough to judge. Books. The ruckus earlier was because the front ghost in line hauled in its own containers, swaggering with 3 big barrels and still wanting more. The ghosts behind lost patience and a brawl started. Back to the point, if the 2 salted fish shops are one family, why is the tavern not limiting purchases? As it wondered, other ghosts whispered, "The tavern has been open for 2 days and ghosts already fight over it. Later will we have to smash skulls just to get a cup? That is nothing." This morning within less than an hour 10 drink machines were sold clean. The boss saw it getting bad and supplemented with second-grade stock so others could drink, otherwise the riot would have come sooner. House liquor never worries about sales. Give it some time and the boss will surely impose limits. That shameless guy ate and took away too, drank inside then lugged a whole jar out. If I were the boss I would limit purchases as well. The passing ghost. Good, mystery solved, it seems. Because the shop just opened, limits have not started yet, they will be arranged next. It recalled hearing that Peaceful Ghost Tower's first floor sold belly-firming snacks, had rushed there at once, and found it true but with a restriction. The general store sold only to households of the tower, blocking a mass of outsiders. The passing ghost refused to give up and thought to pay to reside there, but learned too late. By the time it arrived the tower was full. It waited a whole week without seeing a vacancy, grew disheartened, and since then drifted with no fixed abode. Who knew that passing through Yellow Spring Street it would discover a treasure? It instantly perked up, decided to queue for a few cups first, then when the tavern closed it would buy a room next door for the night. Thereafter it would report daily to the Salted Fish Tavern and even strive to be among the first guests each day. Failing to catch first place is one thing, but our votes got overtaken by third. The chainsaw doctor drooped, drained of spirit. Kaifuang Tran studied the leaderboard, brows knit deep. "I know the one in third, I will persuade her not to muddy these waters." "Really?" The chainsaw doctor brightened. "I will make her agree to my proposal." He smiled. "If words cannot do it, use force." After Kaifuang Tran left, the chainsaw doctor rolled off the sickbed and sprang up. "The competition is too fierce, I cannot lie down anymore." The slaughterhouse's pig-head ghost had expected 2 ghosts to clash, but the other candidate, who popped out from where? Why was the face unfamiliar and the vote count rising so fast? The chainsaw doctor had his own plans and, once separating from Kaifuang Tran, was heading out when a figure wielding twin blades vaulted in through the window. A short dagger was at his chest the next instant. The chainsaw doctor reacted fast, left hand parried, right arm turned into a chainsaw and countered. Ma Hai Noya dodged, yet the tip of her hair was sawed off. Her expression turned dazed, as if unable to understand why a loving family would be fighting. No Nin, ruined, another one gone silly. Alarms clanged in her heart. She swiftly summoned her contracted ghost. that contracted ghost had been made into a mannequin in life and kept that form in death, and upon entering the stage it stared gloomily at the chainsaw doctor. "Why do I have no hands and no feet while you have everything?" The chainsaw doctor. "Ha, if you lack them, then wake up to that yourself." As soon as he spoke, the mannequin ghost took his right arm. "Arg," he hissed in pain, a drop of cold sweat popped on his forehead. "Give me your limbs, all of them." The mannequin, greed never sated, grabbed for the left arm, the left leg, the right leg. "Dream on," the chainsaw doctor cursed while turning his left arm into a chainsaw to cut the mannequin's neck. But the mannequin smiled eerily and his chainsaw arm latched to its body. "Now they are mine." It laughed with glee. The chainsaw doctor nearly spat blood, and by then he understood the gap and knew he could not win, so he turned to flee without the least hesitation. "The left leg is mine, the right leg is mine too, all of it is mine." The mannequin ghost laughed loud. By robbery forming a complete set of limbs, while the chainsaw doctor collapsed miserably and, struggling for a long while, could not move an inch. Mahai Noyet, one moment vacant, one moment pained as she looked on, like a mind in disarray. No Nin strode in and, without a moment's doubt, drove a blade into his heart. "The long night breeds dreams, only your death keeps the road clear." The chainsaw doctor stared wide, unwilling, gazing at Mahai Noyet as if accusing her of cruelty for standing by and not helping. Yellow Springs Clinic had died by accident. Remaining candidates, 2. With the chainsaw doctor's death, the prompt sounded and clarity returned to Mahai Noyet's eyes. Remembering her bewitched behavior, she sighed. "Thanks to you, lucky indeed," said No Nin, that contracted ghost, who sometimes took the right arm, sometimes the left leg, looked fierce but was only letter B rank, and its sole attack was coveting opponents who had hands and feet. If the chainsaw doctor had simply ignored it, the mannequin would have had no moves left and at most could chase and berate. But this case was tricky because the chainsaw doctor was a chatterbox. The ghost spoke a line, he answered a line, and even when it was silent he kept babbling. Each line equaled a hand or a foot, and so he offered up his limbs to the ghost. This is called a hard counter. After playing long enough, one realizes a fight is not won by rank alone. For example, a letter S logistics ghost who only knows how to pull ghost stars without a suitable ghost weapon at hand will struggle to defeat a letter A ghost and may even lose to letter B. There are many ghost stars, but if the weapon is too poor, then no matter how many are gathered it is hard to break through, and many so-called prodigies fall this way. Recalling the bout, No Nin felt secretly lucky, glanced at the body and could not help cursing, bullying a letter S player. You had it coming. Kai Fuang Tran was hurrying to argue with Van Han when word of the doctor's death reached him mid-path and his steps halted. "Where is this? Who am I? What was I about to do?" After sorting his thoughts, his face turned black. As a novice in Yellow Spring Street, he had once been poisoned and gone to the clinic for treatment. The chainsaw doctor carved away rot and sprinkled powders, and from then on he was controlled by a ghost. Remembering the foolish things he had done, he gnashed his teeth. Though the doctor was dead, he wanted to shock him back to life and kill him again. Van Han, after a short rest in the back room, awoke to a changed world. On the leaderboard, the former second had dropped to third and then a ghost disappeared. The vast hall was jammed with drinkers, not a single seat free. A ghost recognized her and whispered at her side, "Manager, the Peaceful Ghost Tower's first-floor general store sells snacks. Our Salted Fish Tavern should arrange some too." Others chimed in, "Liquor without snacks halves happiness. You were so kind, surely you cannot bear to see us go hungry, right?" A meddlesome customer dared say anything, even boasting with a raised hand. "Manager, I registered you as a candidate for street chief." "So it was you," thought Van Han. The ghost, unaware of disaster, still bubbled, "Such merit, treat everyone to a cup. When you take office shall the whole street celebrate for 3 days, no need to be too polite. But if you insist, then comp me for 7 days. How can you register for someone else?" a ghost asked. "How did you do it?" The registrar snickered, legs shaking with pride. "It is simple, just say, 'I register the Salted Fish Tavern's manager,' and it is done." Do you think all those candidates signed up themselves? Many were reported by enemies. Competition for street chief is intense,
NK
so to a
books.
degree the candidate list equals a death list. Then why put me on it? Are you trying to harm me? Van Han cut in. The registrar froze. Mind a slurry, at a loss. By your own words, the list equals a death list, she said coldly. Your sneaky registration pushed me into danger and embarrassment. She only happened to have the strength to come out fine and even rise. Another person so set up might not last until voting ended before going cold. Well, the ghost stammered. Enough. She refused to listen, for presuming to decide for me. You are banned from the tavern for 7 days, the registrar gaped, never imagining such an end. Had it known, it would not have bragged. It tried to plead, but the super safety system grabbed and tossed it out. Other ghosts stared. One, a friend, tried to explain. It meant, well, good intentions can birth bad outcomes. The manager is right. A drinker snarled before she could speak. With that meddling, if the manager failed to win and the pig-head ghost took the seat, would we still have good days? What if the manager, broken-hearted, left the street or never opened again? Imagining such a grim future, all present were horrified, and a rank ghost even shouted, "If you have not voted, then get out and vote. The manager must win." Outside, everyone has relatives and friends. These customers called buddies and rallied familiar ghosts to vote for Van Haan. In a blink, the second-place vote count soared, glued to first and ready to overtake. The pig-head ghost felt threatened and could not fathom how the other side pulled votes so ferociously. Perhaps a charm-type gift, yet no matter. If only one candidate remains, the game ends early regardless of votes. It eyed the board with a sinister grin. In thanks for the enthusiastic support, Van Haan worked in the back end and wheeled out vending machines. Thus, besides the drink dispensers, there were 5 vending machines selling all kinds of snacks: milk candy, heart-clearing tea, dried beef, drumsticks, steak, red glazed mung cakes shaped like pomegranate seeds, fizzy water that makes your feet tingle, cigarettes from the Black Bright General Store, rice balls from the Fate Casino, strict edition chocolate from the Death Tour Group. So many varieties that ghosts were dazzled. There was also a newly added incense string from the Peaceful Ghost Tower instance, but since it did not count as a snack, she did not add it. Even so, once the new stock was rolled out, long lines formed before the machines, ghosts roared and spent with gusto, and even if the queue stretched far, they kept standing. She considered adding another 5 machines, but this was a tavern and too many snacks would drown the main act, so she gave up. At a new shop, purchase limits had not been set, so a rich ghost stood at a machine and started scanning to buy endlessly. Those behind fumed. How can they buy as they please without restraint? Limit purchases. We need limits, set them now. The manager listened to the people's call and set a daily cap per guest. The wealthy ghost closed its eyes in pain, never expecting to taste the feeling of having money yet unable to spend. Another ghost, overly sad, grabbed ghost stars and gnawed them, raging, "If I cannot buy to eat, then what use are you?" Another had queued patiently, but the line did not shrink. Impatience flared and it yelled, "If the per ghost quota is still too high, perhaps reduce a bit." Before the sentence finished, several ghosts clapped hands over its mouth. "No, do not, promise us, say nothing." It struggled. "Why are you grabbing me? I must say it, the quota is too high, reduce a portion to bless more ghosts." As soon as it finished, the line behind grew and more joined in. "Right, that will speed things up and raise queue efficiency. The ghost up front has been selecting forever. By now the demon calendar has died. It has choice paralysis. Fewer choices help it decide faster." Seeing over 7/10 support tighter caps, Van Haan opened the screen and adjusted again. With the general will set, the few who had gagged it glared resentfully and lowered their hands. Once the new setting saved, a ghost came to whisper a few words to her, and then one ghost left the tavern. Over there the vending line moved markedly faster. "Ha, I am so smart." The once gagged ghost beamed and stepped up to the machine, only to see the interface: maximum daily quantity 5, snack varieties per purchase 10. Not enough, not nearly enough. It turned to stone on the spot. As proud as it had been when offering advice in line, it now regretted as much at the machine. Why had it not swallowed the words then? Now look how many treats were missed. The more it thought, the more it seethed. "I know a fatal weakness of the pig-head ghost," a drinker had murmured at Van Haan's ear minutes earlier. Joy and urgency flashed across her face. "What weakness?" The ghost glanced about warily. "Talking here is unsafe. Let us go outside." "All right." She followed the informant far away to a quiet corner. Only then did it say, "The fatal weakness of the pig-head ghost is..." The voice faded to a whisper. She should have held her breath to listen, yet instead she grabbed its neck and slammed it into the wall, barking, "Have you eaten? Speak louder." The informant. "What?" While they grappled, the pig-head ghost crept up behind her, grinning viciously as it lunged, but the mantis stalks, the cicada and the oriole waits behind. Behind the pig-head ghost a black shadow had been lying in wait, seeing its attention fixed on ambushing her. The shadow pounced and swallowed it in one gulp. From that angle the informant saw everything. "Wait, why are you still pretending?" The shadow finished its meal and turned toward the informant, ready for another bite. "Why insist on going outside to talk when we could speak in the tavern? Do you take me for a fool?" Van Haan tightened her grip until the informant rolled its eyes. It clenched its jaw. "If you will kill, then kill." "Why?" she asked. "Is the liquor bad or the snacks inedible? Why stand with the pig-head ghost?" "Because they are too delicious." It made me want more. An unwilling gleam lit its eyes. It promised that if it won the election and became street chief, it would give me the tavern's whole warehouse, standing in line and paying daily. How much can one drink in a month? Better to risk everything in one throw. If I succeed, then everything is mine. with that quality do you think it could take office and keep a promise?
Besides, there is nothing in the
warehouse. She shook her head. Everything is in my personal space. Impossible. The informant refused to accept that painstaking scheming had become a fool's errand. With the answer secured, she could not be bothered to argue and flicked it to the shadow. The shadow gave a single gulp and swallowed it down. A few hours later, letter S pighead ghost fully digested, blood-soaked slaughterhouse field master died by accident.
remaining candidates. 1. The system declares
that you win automatically. Congratulations, you are now the street chief of Yellow Spring Street. More permissions unlocked. Congratulations on obtaining the letter S talent unspeakable. Letter S talent with potential to ascend. The Emperor's name may not be spoken. Those whose hearts hold goodwill will instinctively avoid you. Those whose hearts hold ill will be cursed, and curses will stack. Days ago she had skimmed the election rules and scoffed that any ghost Emperor could have it if they liked. Days later, reading the new permissions, she nodded. Truly fragrant. At the same time other players received notices. Blood-soaked slaughterhouse field master died by accident. Remaining candidates. 1. Congratulations to player number 351,147 for becoming Yellow Spring Street chief. Brawling and thievery are forbidden under this jurisdiction.
NK
3
books.
Cumulative violations earn a blacklist entry and immediate expulsion. Those on the blacklist may not set foot in Yellow Spring Street. Violators will be struck by lightning. The first to complete the side mission election may choose to leave immediately or remain in the instance until the game ends. At that moment 3 who were scheming in the clinic stared. They had been discussing countermeasures. How did it jump straight to the grand finale? With the election ending early, players could exit at will. Being able to leave safely is always good, said Kaifuang Tran, and bolted. After being mind-controlled he had done many foolish things and now he did not want to recall, nor had the face to linger. If only she were streaming, murmured Nonin. I really want to see how she cleared the stage and rose to the seat. To prevent leaks all live rooms were closed after the first day, unless you missed the timing, and during this instance she did not stream at all, said Ma Hai Noyet, who had the habit of streaming. What a pity, sighed Nonin, and ended the game. On the other side, with her business now vast, Van Han did not remain to grind marks. As soon as the system said that players may leave now or stay to the end, she chose to leave. Congratulations on clearing a letter S instance. Side mission election, your contribution rate is 72%. Your performance was outstanding. Rewards: 12,000 ghost stars and 1 special item vacant property deed. In the previous letter S instance Fate Casino, the journey had been riddled with dangers, so this time even though the double letter S shadow slew the letter S pighead ghost, she still had it lie in ambush to finish with 1 strike kill. Running instances should feel this light and fun. She smiled and tucked the vacant property deed into her personal space. Chaos spread as onlookers and the poison teetered on the edge of madness when police and ambulances finally rushed in. At the kitchen trash they found bone fragments of a blue-ringed octopus scrubbed pale. Who handled the ingredients? An officer asked. I did, the assistant cook stammered. I only washed all the octopus, removed debris, cut it into pieces. I honestly did not know anything about blue-ringed octopus. Where did you buy the ingredients? The supermarket, he said, and gave a name. Someone muttered that several reports today were all blue-ringed octopus poisonings, likely from the same batch. During the catch one of them got mixed into the normal octopus and was not pulled out. This happens, it has happened before, because apart from the pretty azure rings it looks little different from harmless octopus, a small lapse and you mistake it for food. But in truth this octopus is among the most toxic marine creatures known and there is no anti-venom. Bag the kitchen trash and the food, rush the victims to the hospital, the captain ordered. Though the medics were already moving them to emergency, the police and ambulances came in a hurry and left in a hurry. The workers who had escaped were still shaken, cold fear crawling their backs. After the meal, the workers crowded around Van Han. You are the new office clerk, Van Han, right? Awesome, you even knew the octopus was poisonous. Lucky you stopped us in time or I would have eaten it all. The canteen used to make chicken drumsticks with mushrooms for us. Those mushrooms were as tender as silken tofu and the flavor was wonderful. But the lady boss said when mushrooms are old they become toxic. Afraid of accidents she banned that dish, and then banned other mushrooms too just in case. Who would think not only mushrooms cause trouble, even octopus from the supermarket can be poisonous. Van Han smiled and nodded. It is dangerous out there now, right? A few days ago I ran into a huge accident. A truck was driving fine and a bundle of rebar suddenly fell. Terrible, so much blood, so many injured, and the woman was cut off by the boss. Van Han, come here, I have something to discuss. Coming, Van Han apologized and left. In the office the boss was gentler than ever. I heard you discovered the octopus was poisonous and stopped everyone. Van Han nodded honestly. My sixth sense is sharper than most. I often sensed something wrong a step early, when I felt very bad and saw someone collapse. I stopped them. Oh my, with that skill, why did you not say so sooner? The boss cooed. Had I known, I would not have given you such tiring work. When there is downtime, you can sense things for us and warn everyone. The sixth sense is on and off. I am shy about talking it up, and I get exhausted afterward. I am afraid it affects work. No problem, you saved everyone. I will give you 3 days paid leave. Rest up and return when your energy is full. That seems impolite. Nothing impolite about it. If anyone objects, send them to me. Without you stopping them, there would be more victims. You made a huge contribution to the factory. 3 days off is only right anywhere. Rest easy, I will cover. Said to that point, refusal would be rude. Van Han thanked her and left. A while later, the smile faded from her face. At first, that woman could not wait to squeeze the life out of them, making sure every minute and second was busy. After the rescue and the boss's mental attributes seemed enhanced, she looked at ordinary workers like a higher life form looking down on lesser beings, and now that she discovered Van Han had a power, she turned warm and kind, even oddly solicitous, as if fawning over someone stronger, who deserves which attitude. The woman calculated it clearly. The chill of that realism was frightening. If you have no powers, are you simply fit to be trampled? Van Han could not name the feeling, only that for a moment the world felt opaque. It was called 3 days off, but with the weekend added it became 5, a break that long left her unsure what to do. After a moment she decided to ask for Tu Ho's address. He is such a brat, does not admit fault, why look for him? The women wondered. Van Han smiled wryly. Earlier I saw a cloud of misfortune over his head. The next few days might go badly. I am uneasy. If I had not seen it, that would be one thing, but seeing and not helping would gnaw at me. You are truly kind. They sighed and gave the rental address, and Van Han gladly took it. The next noon, Tu Ho stepped out to pick up a lunchbox and saw her waiting. I am a new office worker from the factory. I have questions. Can we talk? He scoffed. Nothing to say. Van Han pulled out a thick stack of cash. Payment for information. The factory's tangle was too complex to probe cleanly, so she chose a shortcut. Pay a former worker to talk. He hesitated, tempted, then let her in. As soon as they sat, he said, even if I tell the truth, you would not believe it, and I have no proof. Van Han was calm. Whether to speak is up to you. Judging truth is my job. He pocketed the cash. Fine, ask. You said the cigarette butts near the warehouse were a frame job. Why frame you? What do you know? A sharp first question. He sighed. Because I learned what I should not, and my conscience pricked me. I refused to collude. He did not hide. The boss runs a small garment subcontractor. Her own brand has no reputation and sales are poor. To increase profit, she came up with copying hot items from big brands. For a designer, once you have a sample, you can deconstruct and clone it, which may not even be illegal. Just tweak tiny details and swap fabrics, then brazenly claim it as your brand's design. Looking similar is due to shared inspiration. This is common in apparel and often not illegal. In practice, it worked. Business improved a lot. What she earned in 1 year exceeded the prior 2 or 3 combined, but she was insatiable and wanted more. Planning to counterfeit completely, slap others' labels on and sell. That is illegal. I refused and she found a pretext to fire me, and she even holds leverage over me. If I expose her, she can accuse me of tossing cigarette butts in the plant and nearly causing a fire. Say I held a grudge after being fired and slandered her. Van Han's power did not react. Likely this was his own believed truth. She asked, why are you sure it was the boss framing you? Could there be other possibilities? Who else? At that time she forced me to break the law with her. I was under great pressure and hid to smoke every day. To plant evidence they would first need a bag of my butts, and besides her I offended no one. Why not just say yes and do one job? I thought about it, but my conscience would not allow it. He laughed at himself. Copying is everywhere, in every trade. There is a brilliant designer who made a coat and hat stand from 6 rods. Seeing the finished work, it looks simple because the thing stands right before your eyes, but reversed the path of invention, and it took him 2 years. He wanted the simplest materials to make the easiest to assemble, most practical piece that still radiates design. With that he won major awards, got federal patents, was archived by museums, and the stand even appeared in films. Then he opened a shop online, with tens of thousands of views, yet sold only 2 pieces for a few hundred yuan total. Meanwhile, nearly 300 cottage shops sold knockoffs handsomely by being cheaper. To build the real thing he poured in 2 years and his savings, ending with piles of unsold stock, a workshop that could not run, workers unpaid. Those flea market shops even got mass reported, threatened him, bought fake traffic that made the platform flag him for violations and shut him down. He could have ridden that design to success, wealth, reputation, position, and a calmer life to create more. but reality dragged him under. Drained his energy and he finally died from overwork. From the day I learned that story I could no longer stomach copying or cloning. Leaving the factory was only a matter of time. He smiled thinly. It is like a student who spends months on a thesis only for the advisor to dismiss it, then tweak it and submit under the advisor's name to a top journal, fame all to the advisor. Or a temp who secures a big order and the manager simply books the credit under their own name, begrudging even a small cut. All theft of labor's fruit. The sad part is the thieves live well while the original creators are ruined and despairing, and only when it happens to you do you truly burn with grievance. Others rarely empathize, so I equally dislike all humankind, including myself. If one day humanity perishes and the world ends, perhaps that is fine. Van Han fell silent. She came to investigate, but after that tale her mood sank and the factory matter stayed blurry. She was about to press him when he said, "Some things are guesses and may not be true, saying them might mislead you. I will only say this: Tu Tran is a distant relative of the boss. She likely has no power at all and never really senses danger." A short line with massive implications. After that he clammed up and she did not force him. Happy time flies. 5 days of leave passed in a blink. On the workday she returned eager to probe, only to see a haze of black around the workers as if they had little time left. She grabbed one and asked, "While I was away, did anything unusual happen?" The woman thought and asked back, "Does the tap water turning black with a strange smell count? What is going on? What happened to the water?" "It turned black and sour with a weird taste. We called to complain, but the water bureau said there is no problem, perhaps a bit acidic but within safety. We asked when it would return to normal and they had no answer, only that everyone's water is like this lately and it will pass in a while. The boss told us to boil it before drinking. For safety we should boil it several times." She added gossip. "It is not just our factory, the office tower and the residential blocks nearby too. Some people showered with it at night and their hair turned blue and stuck together like glue." Spooky as it sounded, after 2 or 3 days of drinking the black water with nothing obvious happening, people relaxed. The truly worried had been buying bottled water from the start. Van Han frowned. The woman panicked. "Do not go quiet on me. When you do I get goosebumps." Van Han hedged. "I have a very bad feeling without knowing why. So the water really is a problem and the bureau lied." "Calm down, I just returned. I need time to investigate." "Then investigate and whatever you find tell me." "All right, for now do not drink that black water. I cannot shake the sense something is wrong." "Okay, I will listen." Van Han obtained the bureau's number and called directly. "The tap water is running black. There is a problem," the young operator insisted, "though it is a bit sour with a smell. The quality is fine and safe to drink." "Do you believe yourself? It truly is safe. I have no reason to lie." "A lie?" Van Han asked. "Do your supervisors know you were answering like this?" "They do." "Good, this call is recorded. If you will not act I will find someone who will." She hung up. For some reason the operator felt a pang of unease. Countless callers had been talked down, only this one insisted on getting to the bottom of it and there was nothing she could do. Orders from above were to always assert the water was fine. Ending that call, Van Han dialed the police. "Hello, my address is in District XX on Street XX. The local water supply is severely contaminated and may cause large-scale harm. Please dispatch immediately to investigate and restore safe drinking water." The dispatcher asked, "How did you determine severe contamination?" "The water is black with a strange smell and sour taste, and most importantly I am powered, even when colleagues boil it and drink. My sixth sense screams warnings." She usually concealed herself, but since the evolution game had been public for months and she was speaking to the authorities, hiding felt pointless. Speaking plainly might make them take it seriously and act fast. Hearing she was powered, the dispatcher's tone shifted at once. "Thank you for the report. I will have colleagues investigate." The call ended, and a colleague reminded her, "This number has a special mark. The caller has successfully warned early many times." The dispatcher stiffened. "Uh-oh, if she is right we are talking at least several thousand affected." Grasping the severity, they moved at once. No sooner had Van Han reported than she saw Tu Tran filling an electric kettle to boil water. Someone slipped up behind her and said, "Your sixth sense never actually hit right, did it?" Startled, Tu Tran refuted on reflex, "No. There was one time." The words betrayed her. She shut the tap and hurried off with the kettle. "Only once did you get a hit and yet you kept telling the boss danger was coming so she could stage emergency evacuations." Remembering the boss's sudden boost in mental attributes and her superior gaze at ordinary people, Van Han finally understood. Self-written self-performed stunts to farm good ratings. At a secluded spot. Burn some scrap cloth and you have sparks and a fire, let it catch. Then Tu Tran foresees danger and alerts the boss to evacuate. Over 40 workers are herded to an empty lot. The two rush over to put out the fire. The blaze is contained in time. one warns early, one orders evacuation, and together they harvest praise. No wonder in 3 days there were 5 alarms with 4 false, except the fire all were staged. Van Haan's thoughts snapped into focus. Lying it was an earthquake did not matter as long as somewhere in the plant a fire existed. To evacuate, a little lie could be excused. Once she saw through it she could not help but marvel, using more than 40 workers to sweep up good reviews while making them willingly cooperate. In the end those workers even felt grateful. Exploitation to this degree, and yet the exploited still gave thanks. One has to admit the boss is talented. Money trails rarely survive careful audits, and Van Haan's water report sent powered investigators out at once. In just half a day they traced everything. And what they found left everyone stunned. For days earlier a truck driver had been told to deliver aluminum acid solution to a wastewater treatment plant in District XX, but he had never been there and did not know the layout. A co-worker handed him a key ring saying it was simple: enter the gate and the aluminum acid tank is on the left, unlock and pour. At the plant no one greeted him. He remembered the instruction to pour into the left side tank, but there were several locked tanks there. Which one? After half an hour with no one showing up he tried a key on one of the tanks. Click, it opened. He naturally assumed that was the aluminum acid tank and poured the entire load in, but in truth the co-worker had given him a master key that could open all the tanks, and the one he opened held already treated water ready to be supplied to nearby residents. The aluminum acid immediately contaminated it. Under normal standards the maximum aluminum concentration in domestic water is less than 1/5 of a milligram per liter, but the polluted batch peaked at around 620 milligrams per liter, about 3,000 times the limit, enough to endanger health. Stranger still, on the 3rd day after the incident the plant staff noticed the aluminum acid reservoir had dropped too fast. Aluminum acid, used as a coagulant to strip solids, had been topped up only days earlier and should not have fallen so quickly. They contacted the driver. He told them exactly what he had done. They panicked and forced him to keep quiet. Then the Water Bureau fielded hundreds of complaints but stuck to one line, that the water was fine. Even when the story began to leak, the higher-ups insisted the excess aluminum would be eliminated by the body over time and the black water would not harm people. In the end the authorities brought in biologists who found plenty wrong. Not only aluminum acid but other harmful substances were present. Because the solution was acidic it corroded zinc and lead components in copper pipes and fittings as it flowed, and if you boiled this water it not only failed to disinfect but actually raised pollutant levels. For instance, the aluminum concentration climbed at least 3-fold after boiling. Impossible, the water is drinkable. The bureau chief still struggled. The powered investigator said, people in the nearby office tower have already developed rashes after drinking. Some have headaches, sore throats, aching joints, and total fatigue. One resident who drank the foul water died unexpectedly, and lab results show aluminum in the brain far above safe levels with signs of dementia. Faced with facts the chief could only crumble and bow his head. Chapter 66 Garment Workshop Subcontracting 5 Plus Onboarding 1. After the water contamination broke out, the whole net exploded. At a time like this, why are people still working so sloppily? The all-purpose key: go into the dirty water plant, find an alum storage vat yourself, then pour in aluminum sulfate. How could an ordinary person even do that? What's even wilder is what happened after staff realized there was a problem, and instead of rushing to clean up the mess, their first reaction was to cover mouths, as if, so long as you cover the whistleblower's mouth, this never happened, right? Residents nearby won't actually drink that stuff, will they? Black water is absolutely undrinkable. Go to the supermarket, buy a few cases of mineral water and stock up, hold out until tap water is back to normal, then use it for drinking. I didn't even want to drink it at first, but I called the Water Bureau and the person on the line kept saying no problem, safe, rest assured and drink. I was soft-eared and believed it. Say no more. I'm going to the hospital for tests right now. Immoral, utterly immoral, to do filth like this deserves heaven's punishment. But speaking of which, when this happens why complain only to the Water Bureau? If they won't handle it you should find other channels and keep filing complaints. Each matter is its own matter. Who knew the Water Bureau would lie? I heard a certain evolver looked at the black water and felt especially bad, only then decided to blow the whistle. Ordinary residents heard no problem and got fooled. The internet was a clamor, while in real life those who had carelessly drunk the black water felt their hearts blaze with anxiety, afraid that one day they would close their eyes and never open them again. The boss lady's lip even blistered. She had been meticulous, overly meticulous, to calm workers and make them feel safe boiling tap water to drink instead of shouting for the factory to provide bottled water. She collected the black water, filtered it, boiled it repeatedly, Swore disinfection was complete, then took the first sip herself. She had thought it foolproof, yet in light of today's operations it was basically concentrated, heavily polluted water. Her vision went dark. In truth, even if she had installed purifiers and everyone drank bottled purified water, after a few days the cost would have been small, but she felt it unnecessary. Tap water only looked darker, a bit sour, not enough to kill. Why waste money? Besides, the Water Bureau said it was safe and drinkable. Treat it like lemon water. With factors stacking up, she drank the black water for several days in a row. Only now did she piece together why, though all four attributes had been rising to varying degrees, her skin had felt itchy these days. It was because the water had a problem. Attribute growth is gradual. To resist effectively, the body attribute needs to exceed 3. To be entirely unaffected, body probably needs to exceed 6. Ideally awakening an ability that boosts constitution and resistance. Judging by that, all her busy work only raised body by plus 0.9. Utterly insufficient. She had to think of something. Her face went gloomy. We're going to set another fire, she said flatly. This time we go big, wait for the blaze to rage, then put it out. Little staged scuffles get low evaluations, only a grade C. I once ran into a mall fire. The flames were huge, a whole floor burned. I only noticed early and shouted for people nearby to run, and got an A. Shachin trembled. Resistance all over her. Auntie, this isn't good. What if the fire got out of control and really burned the place down? What's the problem? The factory is mine. If I set a fire in my own factory, who dares say much? The boss lady snapped. Shachin didn't want to do this anymore, but couldn't sway her and finally compromised. Just this once, this will be the last time I help with this. Alright, you've said before you don't want to get mixed up. I know, when I'm free I'll find someone else to replace you, the boss lady said impatiently. In her eyes, failing to seize a chance to farm evaluation points was just foolish. Shouldn't have approved Yunhan's leave, she muttered, vexed. Who could have thought that in just a few days of her absence the factory would get this chaotic? In short, the big mistake was made. Regret was useless. After careful thought she laid out the revised plan to Xiao Chun. One took cooking oil, the other a lighter, and they slipped into the warehouse. As the boss lady sparked the rag pile, Xiao Chun hesitated. Auntie, if the fire gets big and the warehouse really burns, what about all the fabric in there? You think my heart wouldn't ache? The boss lady growled. If not for drinking too much polluted water and fearing I won't live long, I'd never do this. Oddly enough, before drinking the polluted water she begrudged buying purifiers when the workers clamored. After drinking it and getting a skin disease, so long as she could recover, she'd give up the whole factory. If the scoring standard isn't blaze size but whether lives are endangered, then what? Maybe the blaze being large truly endangers lives, so they counted as rescuing people, Shachin pressed. But we staged small fires before, set the ignition far from the workers. Even if we didn't put them out, almost no one would be harmed, so the score was low. The boss lady, focused on work, grew irritable at Su Xiaochen's babbling. What are you trying to say? She snatched the oil, opened it, tilting to pour. Xiaochen lowered her head and mumbled, I was thinking, if the warehouse burns and the score still doesn't rise, then what do we do? That truly was a question, but why not say it earlier? The boss lady was about to smother the spark and revise the plan when someone pushed the door open. Boss lady, the police are looking for you. No need to rush the inventory. Before he finished, the floor supervisor froze. Flames, rags, lighter, cooking oil. This was clearly arson. The police behind him drew a gun and barked, don't move. The boss lady had no awakened self-protection and submitted meekly, though throughout she glared at the supervisor. If the police came, couldn't they have waited in the lobby? Why bring them here? The supervisor couldn't fathom why she would torch her own factory and blurted, boss lady, why, were the previous fires also your doing? Hearing that, the officers thought, a repeat offender, and grew even frostier. Save it for the station. You're coming with us. She nearly tripped herself walking out, eyes full of dread. Xiao Chen, as accomplice, was cuffed and taken too. In the main hall, seamstresses who had been at their machines saw them escorted away and panicked, asking why. The only person who knew the inside story stared blankly and stammered. The police say they repeatedly set fires intentionally in the factory, most likely to farm evaluation. Hearing that, the workers felt a chill up their spines, gooseflesh rising. The boss lady and Xiao Chen are that immoral? In the interrogation room the police asked, did you intentionally set fires to farm evaluation for your workers? The boss lady shook her head frantically. No, I just wanted to burn scraps. Before she finished, an evolver concluded, lie. The cop slammed the table. Burning scraps in the warehouse, burning scraps with cooking oil as accelerant. Who are you fooling? She trembled. I was just burning some stuff in my own factory, can't I? Burning at night with no one around is not the same as burning while workers are on shift. your conduct endangered public safety. Arson charges won't be shaken, the officer said. She was scared and angry. If not for drinking dirty water and fearing death, I wouldn't need to do this, the police retorted. Without hesitation, but even before drinking the dirty water you'd already set fires several times. She was speechless. Do you know that staging rescues to farm evaluations is illegal? They asked. I don't know, she said. The evolver. Lie. Our advice, cooperate and confess. Your accomplice is in the next room being questioned. If she tells everything while you keep denying, she'll get leniency and you'll bear most of the responsibility and reflect in prison, they warned. Her heart thumped. Xiaochen had been guilt-ridden from the start and hated these deeds. Would she confess everything? Thinking so, the boss lady's attitude changed sharply. I'll talk, I'll say it all. I set fires. Once at a mall I smelled smoke and shouted for people to run, got an A and lots of attributes. I got hot-headed and decided to set fires myself, then alert factory workers to evacuate in time to farm points, she said. The officer glanced at the evolver, who stayed silent. Truth, they asked. We heard a worker was fired for arson. Is that true? Yes, she said. The evolver. Lie. Her teeth ground. You set the fire, then planted a cigarette but nearby to frame that worker, didn't you? They pressed. After a long hesitation she grudgingly admitted, yes. Why frame him and fire him? They asked. She stayed mute. The officer rose as if to leave. Think it over. I'll check next door. Don't go. I'll talk, she blurted. We had different visions for the factory's future, so I looked for a pretext to dismiss him, she said haltingly. Some say your factory counterfeited branded apparel and slapped other labels on for sale. True or not? They asked. No, she said. The evolver. Lie. She fell silent, then confessed, it's true. Xiaowu said it was a crime and refused to do a batch, so I found an excuse to fire him, also to hold leverage so he wouldn't speak nonsense outside. One fired to farm points and rid herself of dissent. Two birds with one stone, the officers thought. Morals up in smoke, caught in the act for arson, then confessing other crimes during interrogation. The boss lady received a fixed-term sentence, many years. Meanwhile, workers who had drunk dirty water during shifts tested positive for illness at hospitals and were ruled victims of a workplace accident, then en masse demanded compensation. With victims numerous and payouts massive, the factory went bankrupt and shuttered. She lost both people and money. Steeped in regret, barely over half a month into employment and the boss was sent away, Yun Han again became an onboard trainee. The system prompted, congratulations, player, for surviving by luck in instance number 160. 8462 water contamination incident. Because you indirectly saved 3,189 humans, your clear rating is grade SS, reward attribute points, strength plus 0.6, agility plus 0.6, body plus 0.6, spirit plus 0.5. Your current attributes are strength 8.7, agility 8.7, body 9.1, spirit 9.5, body exceeding 9 grams UA. Special ability. Congratulations on obtaining the superpower Super Regeneration. Super Regeneration. Except for the heart and brain, other parts can regenerate. Your body type abilities now are Tough Hide, Super Resistance, Super Regeneration. Tough Hide thickens skin elasticity for defense. Super Resistance greatly boosts resistance, covering extremes of cold and heat, toxins, radiation. Her survival ability had already been strong. Now with Super Regeneration, even dying would be hard. Only, could this still be called human? Yun Han stopped in the middle of the street, unsure which way to go. Oppose violence, strengthen regulation of evolvers, oppose evolver crime. A crowd marched by, slogans shaking the sky and drawing all eyes. They wore hoods, held banners, chanted in unison, clearly trained. As they passed Yun Han, someone reached out with a flyer. Yun Han took it and looked. The page was crammed with evolver misdeeds: robbery, sudden violence, discrimination, murder. To protect ordinary citizens' rights, they demanded the government strictly restrain evolvers. Yun Han felt as if walking fine down a road and getting kicked in the shin. She quickened her pace and tossed the flyer into a trash can, then a loud bang sounded behind. She turned and saw a bridge not far away begin to collapse. As it happened, the marchers were on the bridge, at least half of them. On the other side were several cars. As the deck gave way, both people and cars dropped into the water like dumplings. Run, someone shouted. Those on the banks retreated fast, staring in panic at the center of the bridge. Books. Stones from the crown toppled too. A big chunk fell and nearly crushed someone. Watch out. The leader, a young man, lunged and shoved a comrade clear. A bespectacled young man, one of the marchers, by reflex ran up and caught the falling chunk. Onlookers gasped. A rock that big, how did he catch it? Falling from height, it carries not only its own weight but potential energy. Even a light thing can kill. Same principle. Did he awaken an ability? Quick, film this, it'll blow up. With so many people around, Others started filming long ago. If you film now, will yours beat full? Versions from others. A friend countered. The exhorter choked on words. Someone else roared, film your head, call ambulances and save people. After safely catching the slab, the bespectacled youth himself stood stunned. He'd acted purely on instinct and couldn't explain why. Before he could think further, the deck kept collapsing. More people plunged into the river. His heart tightened. With a few springy steps he bounded back to the edge. Once he confirmed he was safe, he stared blankly at the broken bridge. Who can swim? Get down there and save people. Some answered the call and leapt in. Others, landbound ducks, stood on shore grabbing side mirrors or door handles and hauled cars straight up onto the bank. The marchers on shore were stupefied. One murmured, looks like evolvers aren't entirely bad people. Soon police cars arrived. More hands joined the rescue. Among them, Shadoué had the highest efficiency. By the collar, by the back, by the waistband, whatever worked, he used. Fast and strong and unconcerned with niceties, he rescued, that is, hauled 3 people ashore in a blink. The department lead, sweating, shouted an explanation. To save more citizens, we will exert all efforts and act at the fastest speed. Yes, fastest speed. So comfort took a back seat. Even fellow ability users muttered inwardly, he's too rough. But before speaking, the deputy squad leader cuffed them on the head. Why are you spacing out? Get back to work. Shadoué has saved 2 or 3 dozen already and is still running. You've done only a handful and you dare stop. A colleague grumbled, he's so casual, that's why his efficiency is high. The deputy squinted. Do you want to run a survey asking victims whether they'd rather be handled roughly but live, or be coddled yet maybe not be saved in time? The colleague fell silent. Move, saving more people beats everything, the deputy urged. Half an hour later most who fell in were pulled out. A few were missing, likely swept away. Those ashore included some who only choked on water, some who revived after CPR, and some who closed their eyes forever. The bridge collapse hit the trending list immediately. Countless asked, why did a sound bridge fail? Tofu Drake's construction, rescuing people is vital, but was that rescuer too rough? At least cradle people up the bank, grabbing collars and hoisting 3 at once. What even is that? Left hand 1, right hand 2, where's your tote bag? I was there. We were all dumbstruck. Others were gentle. Only this guy was savage and crude but number 1 in efficiency. The web was a chorus of scolding aimed at Shadoué. Then survivors came forward one after another. If he'd been even a little slower, I might have died. You're acting like the process matters more than life. To guarantee comfort, it's okay to save a few fewer. As someone saved near the end of the line, I disagree. 7 or 8 drowned because rescue wasn't fast enough, and you still want him slower. With your body temp at 37, how can you say something so cold? If the other rescuers were as casual as he was, maybe those 7 or 8 wouldn't have died. Not blaming the team, just saying in that situation saving lives is paramount. Efficiency first, onlookers added, though I stood on shore, thinking it through. If I were in the water I wouldn't mind being yanked by the collar and tossed up. As long as I live, I can forgive minor scrapes. I saw it. He was an unfeeling rescue machine. Alone he probably saved 4 or 5 dozen more than the rest combined. With that level of skill, don't nitpick service attitude. As more voices defended Shadoué, the wind shifted. People began asking why so many fell in and why the workload was so huge. Someone replied, hundreds of marchers passed the bridge, nearly half fell. How could the workload be small? Photos followed. Sure enough, many who fell wore matching hoods and uniforms emblazoned oppose evolvers. In fact, the full slogan was oppose evolver crime, but by coincidence, once in the water only the first 5 words showed. At a glance, passers-by thought they were opposing evolvers themselves. Meanwhile, an evolver at the bank was hauling someone from the water. The words on the uniforms formed a biting contrast, one side opposing evolvers, the other relying on evolvers when trouble struck. Passers-by said, oppose evolvers on one hand, then wait for evolvers to save you. What a move. I'm starting to understand the rescuers. A bit rough is fine. They must have calculated there was no saving everyone, so they went all out to save as many as possible. If the marchers hadn't stepped onto that bridge, perhaps the rescue team could have been gentle and unhurried. Others posted numbers and reasoned, these months the police have been swamped, now water contamination, now fires, now crimes. One officer would need to split into 7 or 8. Watch closely and you'll see not many could be dispatched. Not that the government wouldn't, just no manpower to spare. Every day too many are waiting for rescue. I have a relative on the force, no exaggeration, they barely sleep and are close to collapsing. Things gradually calmed, then someone uploaded their video from that day. The first part showed the march, the middle showed the collapse, the leader rescuing, and the bespectacled youth's nimble retreat. The last part was a dialogue. The young man who had lunged said, deep hang.
our injured members, today's march is cancelled. Tonight, meeting at my place to discuss countermeasures, the bespectacled young man, Deep Hang, said, I'm already an evolver, why should I keep mixing with you to oppose evolvers together? The leader stared. You, Deep Hang continued. Only after gaining power did I understand the gap between ordinary people and evolvers, how vast it is. With how much power, you should enjoy how much privilege, if treatment is equal, for evolvers, isn't that a kind of unfairness? Thanks to everyone for the Overlord votes. One extra update, 2 short notes combined. Inspiration came from the collapse of a great bridge on April 12 in a far-off country. This text truly is uncanny. While writing, real-life material keeps popping up in the news. The video went public and social media blew up at once. A few minutes ago you were still marching to make a show. A few minutes later you've become a noble evolver. When you were ordinary you shouted against evolvers. Once you become one you demand special privileges, so it turns out you're fighting for your own interests and other people's life and death don't matter to you. This Deep Hang must have seen an incident and had his attributes rise to a certain level, likely still without a superpower, yet his tongue is already like this. If he advances one more step and becomes a superpowered, will he try to reach the sky? Therefore we urgently need stricter management of evolvers. Deep Hang is the best example. Hearts change easily. Once people gain abilities far beyond the norm they become dangerous. The evolver camp refused. Suppose Deep Hang is 25 this year. He has been ordinary for 25 years and an evolver for only 1 hour. Why blame the words and deeds of one man on the whole community of evolvers? If you ask me, strengthen moral education for ordinary people, so when they suddenly become evolvers they will not think of using power to do wrong. What a joke. Most evolvers aren't good people. Illustration, evolvers rushing to save people. Another joke, ordinary people are a weak group easily bullied, so pitiful. Illustration, Deep Hang in a hood and uniform saying with great ability, enjoy great rights, at least take off the hood and the parade uniform before you speak again. The public fumed. Ordinary people are bullied by evolvers, their lives threatened by natural and man-made disasters, and now they must accept moral education too. Who can say such things? So ordinary people are second-class citizens. Without strength they deserve hardship. When he had no ability Deep Hang spoke and acted normally. He became abnormal after becoming an evolver. Doesn't that prove the group of evolvers is unstable? The net turned to chaos. Deep Hang became a rubber ball kicked back and forth. Both ordinary and evolver camps insisted he stood with the other side and his rot had nothing to do with them. As the quarrel grew old debts were dragged out. Evolvers are brutal. A co-worker was made miserable by the boss and suddenly beat the boss into the hospital, later paid compensation and resigned, and that was that. Since then I fear someone might rush from a corner and assault me. Another retorted, even before evolving, if you hate the boss and have a hot temper you can beat someone into the hospital. That's not necessarily about evolving, and some bosses truly go too far. It was assault not fatal injury, which shows restraint. Another said, in our village someone forcibly seized land. That family had power and common folks could not fight them. Luckily one villager awakened and 1 versus 10 knocked them all down. They went to the hospital. Wasn't that deserved? Someone summed up, before, money was king and those who paid were lords. Now the times change and ability is king. Those once lofted to the clouds should fall back to earth and meet the common people. Perhaps from the start Deep Hang was only a fuse. What people really wanted to discuss was the friction between ordinary folk and evolvers and how to live together later. In the special rescue department set up by the Federation to handle the rising number of incidents, cast nets for superpowered offenders, and try to save every citizen. The person in charge wore the face of deep grievance, read the online doubts about rescuers, and sighed. I think you know this is the team leader assessment period. Only by passing it can you be promoted. Tu Due stood before him and said blandly, being a regular member is fine, I don't have to be leader. He had come mainly to secure a payroll slot. The chief shut his eyes in pain. Tu Due was good at everything but his civic consciousness was not high. And his spirit of serving the masses was weak. The chief had considered others as leader yet their 4 attributes were uneven and could not convince the team, whereas Tu Due, even with tracking limited to twice per day and only one of 3 early warning quotas used, still had overwhelming strength and his 4 attributes outclassed the rest. If his awareness rose a bit he'd be the perfect candidate, but at present something still felt short. After a few deep breaths the chief looked him in the eye. The inserted advertisement was cut away. It was my mistake. I should have assigned you to hunt superpowered criminals instead of to rescue missions. The evolution game has been public for 4 months. People are unaccustomed. Concepts haven't shifted. Many things require adjustment. And also, chief, seeing the talk drifting, Tu Due coolly cut in. It's quitting time. The chief was speechless. Indeed, the biggest issue with Tu Due was not a lack of friendliness to the public, but that he clocked out on the dot every day, refused overtime and the internal grind. During hours he worked hard every minute and second. The instant past the mark he left precisely and would rather go into airplane mode, even acting like mutual amnesia after hours. Go on, the chief waved. See you tomorrow. After a polite farewell, Tu Due turned and left. Once the chief had thought the hardest to handle were staffers who relied on power to defy management. Later he found that kind of person could be suppressed with a flick of Tu Due's wrist. Instead it was Tu Due himself whose anti-grind creed was unshakable and who was hard to persuade to invest more time and energy in the job. All in all, the chief pinched his nose and comforted himself. He stands on our side. The locating ability can be used to chase criminals or to assassinate. Early warning can save people or help suspects flee. The fact that Tu Due had not become a superpowered criminal was already a blessing. Clocking out on time was not a big problem. Having consoled himself, he almost believed it and calmed down. Today he had a date with Van Han to stroll the streets. After work, Tu Due ran to the supermarket and from a distance saw her at the door. He quickened his steps. Have you waited long? No, I just arrived. She naturally took his hand. Let's go in. He smiled at once and obeyed. She tossed pork ribs, beef steaks, squid rings, rolled beef belly, mutton chops into the cart and soon it was full. We still need rice and noodles, and better stack a couple of cases of bottled water. Okay, buy them all. At the rice aisle, Van Han looked up and, by chance, glanced at the adjacent shelf. Those walking in had faint gray mist on them and walking out had dense dark gray. Some even had black haze. The shelf held many brands and kinds of edible oils, yet no matter which bottle she took, her power did not react. She sighed inwardly. A high resistance meant low doses of toxins did not affect her, and so it was hard to tell which brand had a problem. She planned to linger and watch which bottle made black haze appear on others when Tu Due said, "Don't take rice bran oil, it feels really bad." She paused, looked down, and indeed held rice bran oil. What other oils give that feeling? No, he said, it's you. She put the rice bran oil into the cart and said, after paying, we'll send it for testing to see what's inside. Send it to my workplace. Testing is free and we can get a report tonight. If there's a problem we can block it at once. Okay, she agreed, though her feelings were complicated. Days earlier tap water had just had an incident and now edible oil too. This living environment was unfriendly to ordinary folk. That night after instant noodles, the chief met Tu Due again in the corridor and almost thought he had food poisoning and was hallucinating. Why are you here? Didn't you leave on the dot? The chief eyed him oddly. Found problematic edible oil while shopping and brought it for testing. Tu Due explained simply, then asked, why haven't you gone home? Because the work isn't finished. Good luck. After cheering him on, Tu Due left. What is he here to do anyway? The chief wondered. 2 hours later a staffer knocked. Come in. Before a mountain of pending cases the chief leaned on the desk. The oil Tu Due brought has results. The staffer's face was grave. From your expression it's serious. The chief's head began to ache. The staffer handed the report and explained. Most edible oils are originally smelly and the oil sold to residents is deodorized. Deodorizing requires heating. Some factories use high-pressure steam, but excessive heat can cause thermal cracking and generate harmful substances like trans fatty acids. Some use a heat transfer medium for deodorization and even use polychlorinated biphenyls as the medium. Now the oil contains PCB, we infer the heat medium pipeline ruptured and PCB leaked, contaminating the rice bran oil. The chief rubbed his face to muster spirit. I recall a small town not long ago that had chemical waste buried underground where the main component was also PCB, right? PCB is quite stable, heat-resistant, and insulating, thus widely used for insulating oils, pressure-sensitive papers, and so on. At the same time it is a notorious pollutant. To protect the environment it has rarely been used in recent years. We do not know why this oil plant is still using it, the staffer said helplessly. Indeed, sometimes one cannot fathom what those people think. Some folks act unlike normal humans. Since the evolution game was announced, accidents large and small had come in droves, again and again breaking his imagination and leaving his vision hollow. In front of human ingenuity he felt tiny. He could only say there is nothing people cannot do. Sometimes he even doubted whether his views were too old and his knowledge too shallow, or whether some wore human skins while actually being aliens in disguise. Otherwise, how could they do such outrageous things? After a moment's thought, the chief ordered, recall all substandard rice bran oil from the market, send people to the oil plant to collect evidence and arrest those responsible, and issue a notice telling citizens who consumed this batch of rice bran oil to get a health check. Understood? I'll go now. The staffer hurried off. The oil was brought after hours by Tu Due. It seems we must re-evaluate this man, the chief muttered, then buried himself in work.
In fact, rice bran oil is a healthy edible oil. It can lower blood lipids, lower cholesterol, clear cholesterol plaques from vessel walls, and prevent atherosclerosis. Thus it is favored by those with hyperlipidemia and cardiocerebrovascular disease. The problem lay in a ruptured heat medium pipe that led to PCB contamination, so the finished oil contained toxins. Once the issue was found, the special rescue department urgently traced the batch, on one side recalling all substandard product and on the other blocking circulation. After racing a lap, the substandard rice bran oil was recovered and destroyed. Because the discovery came early, residents were not greatly affected, though some developed rashes, skin pigmentation, and facial ulcers, yet due to limited intake there were no casualties. Notably, a byproduct of rice bran oil production, black oil, had been sold as poultry feed. Had it not been detected in time, the toxic feed for chickens would have been sold widely and the impact would have expanded, whereas now over 300,000 chickens were culled on the spot and the situation was finally contained. This report can only be graded A. If we had ignored it and reported a month or two later, the whistleblower might get S or even double S, but Tu Duwei did not do that. Once he found the problem, he reported immediately and stopped a major crisis. The staffer concluded the findings. The chief was silent for a long time, then drew a file from the drawer and wrote on the last line, reviewed and approved, consent to appoint Tu Duwei as captain of the special rescue squad. Van Han started job hunting again, while Tu Duwei leaned over the sofa arm, clear eyes peeking at the screen and teasing that since it was rare to be free she should just rest for a while instead of working. She calmly replied that at first she only wanted to verify her witch body constitution, then realized the more places she went and the more people she met, the more lives she could save. One more is one more. And that working turned out to be fun, new places, new faces, feeling the diversity of the species. Besides, the way she worked was not like others, like the last time at the garment processing plant. Thinking it over, doing things properly by the book would at most add up to about 2 weeks, because with double weekends she naturally had 4 days off. The lady boss approved another 3 days, which meant 10 days on and 7 days off and then unemployed as staff waiting for assignment. With that workload, how could anyone call it tiring? Suddenly Tu Duwei looped his arms around her neck, voice lilting like a green tea flirt, saying he felt sorry for his pretty sister and did not want her to be worn out. She, half amused, asked if he wanted her to do nothing and stay home all day to play with him. He tilted his face, clean eyes shining, and asked if that could be. She turned away from the temptation and said no. He pouted and burrowed into the crook of her neck, looking pitiful. She ended it by saying work still needed to be found and she would keep him company on weekends. He brightened at once. First you float an impossible wish, then you retreat to the next lower bar, and your wish is much likelier to come true. That is a social trick. Staring at her profile, a surge rose in his heart to study hard and research human impulse as well. After sending out resumes, she noticed postings this time were different. Conditions said women preferred, evolvers preferred, those with a strong sixth sense preferred. At interviews the first question was whether she was an evolver. She said yes, and the second asked in how many incidents she had escaped and whether she would share the experience. She went silent, because if she told the glorious truth of her great escape she would never get an offer, so she refused. The interviewer sighed and that was that. After getting cut a few times she learned the hard lesson and rewrote the resume to say superpowered individual with a superior sense able to foresee danger. Half an hour after the edit calls came in one after another saying her profile matched and to come interview at once. She could only think the world had gone a bit crazy. She followed the queue. The first company was a rich second-gen hiring a personal bodyguard. The interviewer said compensation negotiable. The key point was day shift 8 in the morning to 8 at night, night shift 8 at night to 8 in the morning, and rota required after joining. Thinking of her clingy family she politely declined, saying she wanted a fixed day shift. Best if in the morning, out in the afternoon with double weekends. She rose to leave when he pushed up his glasses and changed tune. If she truly had the superior sense to foresee danger, then she could work 9 to 5 with double weekends, same pay as others. She paused and he added that the young master often went out off hours so bodyguards were expected to follow. If she did not want it she could skip it, if willing the overtime would be paid at triple. Of course the premise for enjoying those benefits was that she truly had the early warning ability and could put it to use. Once more she felt interviews where mutual bluffing in terms were discussable. To keep her they conceded on all fronts. They were so courteous that refusing would be impolite, so she said she felt their sincerity and would join. On day 1 the interviewer introduced her to the day team of 4 and emphasized Sister Tin, whose power attribute was 6+ with agility 3+, both superpowered, and Brother Tongue, whose physique was 3, also superpowered. The others were evolvers already good at
fighting and later strengthened in different ways after 4 to 6 accidents. Then he introduced her as Van Han, a superpowered individual with a superior sense to foresee danger. Sister Tin whistled that the power was nice, a good seed to cultivate. The interviewer said that was her word and left to keep interviewing. A sloppy guy named Lam Long leaned in, joking that she should look at them first and say what she saw. While reaching for her shoulder like a buddy, she clamped his wrist and seriously warned that his luck was bad and blood was in his immediate future. He laughed it off that he was only teasing to test her weight and she should not be petty. She smiled without smiling and said she blocked it, so it was only a joke. If she had not, the story would be different. He decided to talk his way out and she drove a straight punch into his face. He touched his nose and found blood. She asked if the blood omen was accurate. He had no words. Just then the door opened and the boss Lu Triadvu came in. All the bodyguards snapped serious. Seeing Lam Long's state, he frowned and told him to get it treated. The man sprinted for the kit. The boss said he was going out and to bring the car. One evolver went to fetch it. Sister Tin and Brother Tung flanked the boss. As a first-time bodyguard, she stood aside thinking it felt like a film set. The boss looked at her and asked who she was. She introduced herself as the new bodyguard, superpowered, superior sense. He remembered HR had mentioned a new female superpowered guard who seemed decent and only said he looked forward to her performance. Minutes later at the lobby, the car pulled up. As he was about to get in, she sprang forward and shoved his head down. The next second a shot cracked and a round screamed past. If he had not ducked, it would have marked the spot between his brows. Brother Tung strode up to cover the boss. The bullet struck his skin with a metallic ping. There she is, Sister Tin locked onto the shooter and bolted like a leopard. Lam Long stared at Van Han as if at a smeared palette. Fear, shock, and respect all jumbled. First day on the job and she forced the boss to bow his head. Such swagger is not for ordinary people. She withdrew her hand and said apologies for the emergency. The boss finally raised his head, eyes complex as if full of words, and only said well done, but do not do that again. She wondered aloud that if Brother Tung had not reacted in time, the boss would have been in danger. To her mind, life came first. Even if the boss was unafraid of death, she did not want him dying on day one. Brother Tung rumbled that he would have reacted. The boss told her to listen to him. She nodded to respect the client's wish. A few minutes later, Sister Tin returned. The assailant was a speed-type superpower, too fast to catch. The boss stared at the ambush perch, thinking, then drew back and said, "Let's go." As a rich second-gen with ideals, his schedule was packed: morning deals, afternoon boxing, then shower, wardrobe, styling, and a gathering at night. A fine plan except for a small interlude. After 2 hours on the heavy bag drenched in sweat, just as he meant to rest and shower, she suddenly said, "Careful." Sister Tin and Brother Tung snapped alert. A banded kite dropped from above and coiled on his shoulder, tongue flicking near his neck. His body went rigid. Boxing meant bare arms and shorts. Lots of exposed skin. One bite and it would be life-threatening. Sister Tin shouted to find a stick. Bare-handed snake catching is unnerving even for the superpowered. Brother Tung set his jaw to move in and take the bite for the boss, but when he moved, the snake grew more agitated. The boss had to order him back. A staffer shoved in a stick. Sister Tin's quick hands levered the snake off. Other staff swarmed to stun and bag it so it would not flee and hurt guests. Out of danger, the boss barked why there was a venomous snake in the gym. The staffer grimaced that a client who kept an exotic pet had once booked a private room and promised to lock the pet in a crate during his workout and take it away after. They agreed. Who knew he later called to say he had dumped the pet. They had been searching and assumed it was not in the gym. The tale was absurd and infuriating. The boss left in anger. She tugged Lam Long's sleeve and whispered whether the boss wore a debuff of bad luck clinging. Since being taught a lesson, he answered honestly no. The boss had been to Zona before and the debuff had long been cleared. It was just that great family, great business, easy to be tracked. At dusk, the boss, sharp in a suit, arrived at the club door and was about to enter when she regretfully informed him it was time for her to clock out. Sister Tin burst into laughter. After so many odd events since meeting her, the boss still froze at the idea of 5 in the afternoon off duty. She nodded and said HR had promised day shift with double weekends. He dimly recalled, but work had pushed it from mind. She waved a polite goodbye and said, "See you tomorrow." He hurried to fire a lure. 5 times pay for 3 hours of overtime. She smiled and refused. He doubled it to 10 times, sure that no one could resist a money storm. She still said she wanted day shift only, and if forced to do overtime she would rather resign and find another job with day shift and double weekends. He stood there stiff. She thanked him for the consideration and slipped into the crowd. Sister Tin's eyes glittered and she asked for the same day shift and double weekends. He said he would give her a raise. She was not happy. Money is to be spent. If you work all day, when will you spend it? The world is chaotic and who knows how long we live. Life is short, so enjoy what is before you. Seeing her unhappy, he promised once this busy spell ended he would grant a long holiday. She beamed. The other two Evolver bodyguards were envious. Brother Tongue stayed stone-faced and silent at his post. Next day at work, she was surprised the day team had shrunk from 4 bodyguards besides her to 2. Sister Tin and Brother Tongue remained. The other 2 had vanished. Sister Tin explained the club burned last night and Little Lamb and Little Kim were injured and hospitalized for now. She realized Little Lamb meant Lamb Long and Little Kim the other one. Just then HR brought in 2 rookies, Din Nin a body type superpowered, and Thoi Dung an agility type superpowered, so the day shift was back to 5, still 3 men and 2 women but now all superpowered. Introductions done, the handler handed them to Sister Tin and went back to interviews. She eyed the newbies with a testing look and said it months in. The last place elimination test was held here every month and competition was fierce. Work hard, rookies. Van Han thought it was early April and she believed she would pass the end month assessment, but was not sure whether the boss would last to the end of the month. Another packed day, morning store inspections, afternoon gym, evening banquet, a rich second-gen living more industriously than a mule. The bodyguards hustled around on constant guard. She tagged along and occasionally tossed in a remark, keeping the daylight. In a restroom, Sister Tin quietly warned that with that attitude she would be eliminated. She smiled that even being cut would be fine. She would find another job with a day shift and double weekends. Sister Tin asked what if the pay were halved. She answered that her material desires were low and her savings high, so money never worried her. Sister Tin clapped her shoulder, praising her free and easy style as exactly her taste. Of all the people coming and going, only she was pleasing to the eye. No worries, if her name ended up on the cut list, Sister Tin would speak up to keep her. Van Han was surprised it was possible. Sister Tin shrugged that before workplaces promoted men by default. Now that she held the decision power, she would of course choose those she liked. Do not feel guilty. When others held power they did much worse. Van Han mused that a single attribute at 6+ was already a superior. Would 9+ be altar-worthy? Sister Tin complained that before Van Han came she had no one to really talk to and was bored to death, then ranted that once a tiger had tasted human flesh it had to be beaten because it carried the man-eating gene, that dogs were bred by selective pressure to be docile and loyal, so why when it came to men could every gene pass unfiltered? If they could not beat her they would not allow a woman to stand on their heads. They balled up their impotent rage and schemed together, nearly cutting off the boss's little life. Such petty tricks she was too lazy to bring up and sometimes even hated to admit she shared the same species, but Van Han was different, very pleasing. Van Han cocked her head and asked whether it was because she was a woman.
NK
Sister Tin said she had met female superpowered bodyguards before and liked none of them. It was because of Van Han herself. Van Han laughed that she was honored by the favor, treating Van Han as a friend. Sister Tin spoke freely and offered to take her to a club to order male models when free. The place she frequented had good quality, pretty faces, fine figures, and charming acting. Van Han chuckled and declined because she had a partner. Sister Tin grumbled why she was binding herself. As a noble superpowered woman she could pick any man. Van Han solemnly said no. Aside from him she had never met a second one. Handsome, model build, eyes only for her, willing to play a little pup to coax her, and free to switch personas to play along. Sister Tin went speechless, which was to say every male model role at the club her lover could do all by himself. Even she who thought her heart set in concrete felt it stir hearing that. Van Han added that if Sister Tin wandered the club and saw interesting people or stories she could tell her later, and to Sister Tin's ear it sounded like a long-distance show of affection. Who was basking in love across space? Oh right, me, with so many happy people in the world. What harm if I am one more? She swallowed it down. The two had been in the restroom too long and had not returned. Brother Tongue checked the time and was about to send someone when Sister Tin came back, head down and spirit limp as if mortally wounded in the mind. He scanned her and asked whether there had been an attack. She curled her lip that it would be better to be attacked, at least then she could knock the attacker down. Now she had taken 10,000 points of psychic damage with no way to hit back. He did not get it, but if there was no enemy then it was none of his concern, so he said nothing and stood guard. Sister Tin muttered that she was bored to death. The job was boring, colleagues boring, even existing was boring. Brother Tongue went silent for a beat and told her that if she fell in battle her family would receive condolence money in a lavish sum. She was dumbstruck. I just grumbled and you already arranged the aftermath. Many thanks. She shut her mouth and refused to chat with that sort of colleague again. At noon the boss went to his usual restaurant and asked for a booth. Seeing him carry out a basin with huge odd-looking crabs she asked what they were. He said crab and starch powder.
delicious when eaten piping hot and warmly offered. She asked if they were poisonous, and at the mere question everyone grew nervous. The owner thumped his chest that no way, he brought in several basins a day and nothing had ever happened. The boss picked up a crab and raised it to his lips. She saw black mist billow around him, a dire omen, and said if you want to live do not eat it. He froze, put the crab back, and asked if something was wrong with it. The owner panicked and told the girl not to talk nonsense, that he had sold the starch crabs for months without issue. She said evilly that she was superpowered and could foresee danger, and if he did not believe her he could call the police and have the crab tested. Hearing that, the owner also wavered. If the crab was tainted, his restaurant's name would be ruined. After a brief hesitation, the boss set down his chopsticks and said false accusations were bad for all, call it in. The owner bit his lip and agreed, right and wrong would be judged. If the crab was clean, the police would give him justice. Soon officers arrived, glanced at the table, and said these were conscientious hygienic crabs and asked why poisonous crabs had been served. The owner, scared, insisted they were starch crabs and not poisonous and that he had sold them for months. They said that nothing happening was just good luck. Conscientious hygienic crabs were poisonous or not depending on their food source. If the food was toxic, the crab was toxic. If the food was not, the crab was not. Research showed that when red tides brought toxic algae or bivalves boomed across an area, the toxin in the crabs rose likewise. There had once been more than 500 cases of poisoning from eating such crabs, with a mortality around 7%. If someone ate too much, they had to be rushed to the emergency department. The owner went rigid. Sometimes poisonous, sometimes not. Could it be that way? Seeing him stunned, the officers earnestly advised that they had seen a case where the victim vomited, felt limp, dizzy, and short of breath after eating. He ran a restaurant and surely did not want a death on his hands. The owner shivered, shook his head hard. So pull them from the menu and do not sell them again. He felt aggrieved but said nothing, carrying off the whole basin and asking whether anyone still wanted crab. If so, he would comp a pot of spicy crab. The boss now could not stand the sight of crabs, even the word, and asked for braised fish with pickled mustard greens instead. The owner wiped his face and dashed back to the kitchen. A little wasted ingredient was nothing, as long as people were fine. The boss shot Van Han a glance full of praise that she truly was a spirit type superpowered. Only then did he fully endorse her ability, and she remained placid, neither related nor excited by the compliment, calm as ever. Since working with Van Han, Sister Tin had met quite a few supernaturals of the spiritual type. Their powers ranged from mildly useful to utterly strange, sometimes accurate, sometimes not, depending on mood and luck. She used to think spirit abilities were hit or miss and saw Van Han's precision sense as mere coincidence, even believed that without her, Van Han would have been eliminated in the last N-month ranking. But reality slapped that thought. Once, while escorting the boss on the road, Van Han suddenly ordered everyone to stop. A minute later, flames erupted ahead, and 3 minutes later came the explosion. Guards later said some guy, annoyed by too much willow fluff, lit it with a lighter and ended up burning 2 cars in a chain blast. Another time, the boss was about to tour a factory with a partner. Van Han stopped him again. Moments later, the place caught fire and the power went out. Investigation found that a stray hydrogen balloon had hit a high-voltage wire, sparked, and burned the weeds around, cutting electricity to the whole plant. Things always balance out. When the spirit type stayed quiet, the strength speed body type shone bravely, but when the spirit type overperformed, those others went wild like half-evolved monkeys. Lately, Sister Tin noticed the boss's gaze toward her change, still respectful but not as trusting as before. She leaned to Van Han and muttered, "Your spirit stat isn't +3, it's +6, right?" Honestly, I didn't support hiring spiritual users. Their predictions are vague and drag the team down. But the interviewer insisted, useless most of the time, but crucial in danger, and he was right. The easy days with Van Han made guarding feel like a vacation. Same pay, lighter work, who wouldn't enjoy it? Tin wished to partner with Van Han forever. Van Han smiled, "I actually admire our boss. Without a bad luck debuff, he still meets disaster so often. That's skill." Indeed, unlucky'd blink once and we'd be changing bosses again, Tin agreed. Van Han heard no affection in her tone, only reluctance to job hop. Having switched over a dozen employers herself, she sighed, "I hope this boss lasts a bit longer." Tin sensed avoidance but let it slide, cheerfully shifting topics. 2 days later, afternoon. The boss's schedule showed a rest day. Van Han thought he'd finally learned work-life balance, yet didn't. "Boy dung stay at the company, the rest come with me." After half an hour's drive, 4 of them entered an office building packed with murmuring people. Lu Triadvu found his contact and started chatting.
Van Han, curious, looked around.
We're members of the support association.
Young lady, since you're here, want to know more?
A warm auntie in her 50s waved a pamphlet.
Seeing the boss busy, Van Han accepted it.
The auntie beamed, times are chaotic, our association helps people regain inner peace. Life never sails smoothly when hardship strikes, keep an optimistic heart. Even if you meet accidents or disability, don't call fate unfair, it's heaven's test, after suffering, reward will come.
Van Han blinked, sounded like a sales pitch.
For example, the auntie went on, in the evolution game, survivors gain stat points, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Many traumatized people joined, couldn't sleep or eat, but after several activities they're spirited again.
Van Han stayed polite but sensed something off. Not all hardship has reward, some is pure torment, refusing reality won't change it. She turned to leave, but the auntie grabbed her sleeve and whispered anxiously, "Girl, among so many, you're the one I feel fate with, I want to pass my chance to you."
Chance?
Van Han paused.
Yes. I've been in the association since its founding, so I know there's a super powerful ability user, a time traveler who can cross past and future. Van Han's eyes narrowed, such power defied logic, which attribute could
awaken it? Go on, she said.
You know the Mandela effect? The auntie asked. Of course. People misremember Mandela's death, like he died in prison long before 2013.
Exactly.
Similar distortions happen everywhere, statues, cartoons, songs, famous paintings changing expressions, signs that someone from the future altered history. Maybe not machines but awakened powers, she declared proudly. Van Han stayed silent, it was plausible enough to fool many. So? In 3 months the traveler will start time tours. For just 1 million, he can send your message to your past self. I have 1 slot but nothing to say, so I'm offering it for 2 million, 1 for transfer, 1 for the message fee.
Van Han almost laughed, all that preaching for money.
Seems your fate's with cash, not me, she said dryly.
How many have you approached? No one else listens. They all walked away.
1 million, Van Han mused.
Anyone already bought in? Paid on the spot. That one.
The aunt pointed, it was her own boss cheerfully handing over 1 million. If time travel's real, great, pay to warn myself, if fake, it's just a hobby expense, he said calmly.
Even the scammer was stunned. Did the traveler say which year he's visiting? A year ago. Where is he? Chatting with that generous gentleman. If I don't buy, you'll find another?
Of course.
Take me to him. I'll pay.
The aunt lit up, dragging her along, babbling, money's just worldly dust, people matter more. Tell the traveler any regret from this year and he'll deliver it. In a corner stood the so-called time traveler, just finishing with Lu Triadvu. The aunt introduced glibly, my distant niece, curious about your power. Van Han lifted her gaze, eyes wide with naive awe.
You can really go back in time?
The man smiled like a sage. Of course.
Ability detected, lying. Van Han. Van Han asked again, can you also go toward the future?
The space-time wanderer, correct.
Superpower, lie detection. Van Han feigned ignorance and kept probing, what is the world like in the future? Do humans still exist then? Heaven's secrets cannot be divulged.
The space-time wanderer put on the air of an unfathomable sage, while revealing a look of scratching exactly where it itches and pitying the common folk. I only hope that among the myriad paths, humanity can ultimately find the one that leads to happiness.
Superpower, lie detection.
Van Han thought, whether humanity is happy or not you do not care, you plainly just want to swindle money. She was about to speak when a woman in her early 30s rushed up, clung to the wanderer's leg, and wailed, I can raise 1 million.
I will sell the house, I can definitely scrape it together. Please, give me a slot, I truly need it.
My daughter has cancer, when they found it, it was already late stage. The doctor said that if she had had a physical a year earlier, perhaps she could have been saved. The space-time wanderer looked terribly troubled. Slots are limited, they cannot be increased at will. I travel alone, passing through past and future, and cannot rescue everyone. Master, I beg you, save my daughter. The woman cried and kowtowed, looking truly miserable. Seeing others all turning to watch, the wanderer had to help her up. Stand first. No, like a drowning person clutching the final straw, she refused to let go. If you do not agree, I will not stand. Why put yourself through this? She kept kneeling and kowtowing until her forehead turned red. After a short standoff, the wanderer sighed and finally relented. All right, I will break the rule and help you once. The auntie, seeing this outcome, felt a strange sense of satisfaction. Look how many people are offering money to beg the wanderer for help. If you do not bring out the money and fix your slot now, in a moment you might have no chance. She turned back and gaped. Where is she? She had just craned her neck to watch the commotion and thought Van Haan was still beside her, who knew that once the show ended, the fat sheep had run. Had she known, she would not have been so engrossed. The auntie fumed and fretted, regretting fiercely. Here! Van Haan popped out of the crowd. The auntie exhaled and scolded. Where did you run off to? If you missed the timing and failed to buy a slot, then what? You just arrived and do not know how fierce the competition is. With just 1 million you have the chance to send advice to yourself of 1 year ago. Such a fine opportunity. I cannot keep quiet and know it alone. Van Haan wore an innocent, guileless face. I went to call my relatives and tell them about NK Books. They were shocked and said they are coming at once. The auntie hesitated. Slots are limited, even if they come, it is useless. Van Haan said, as long as hearts are sincere, the wanderer may consider and increase the slots. The auntie had meant to stop her, but then thought, what does this matter to me? I just want to transfer the slot and earn the transfer fee. Whether others have slots or not has nothing to do with her. Go, hurry, and settle it so I can rest easy. Seeing the wanderer and the woman who had rushed up nearly finished talking, the auntie led Van Haan forward again. Wanderer, my distant niece would like you to carry a message, the auntie pleaded earnestly. What message? The wanderer asked kindly. Van Haan smiled slightly and answered loudly, please tell the wanderer of 1 year ago to remember to be a good person, and by all means do not sink into degeneracy and go out to cheat. The space-time wanderer, a thunderclap on a clear day, the hall burst into an uproar. The auntie almost fainted. What nonsense are you spouting? The wanderer's face darkened. Security. There is a troublemaker here, take her out. A dozen guards charged. Van Haan swung her hands like blades, left and right. In no time, the whole group was out cold, not one eye left open. Panic struck the wanderer, he turned to flee. Van Haan set one palm on him and pressed him down, laughing, I hear wanderers can traverse time. Then do you know that in the future you will be jailed for swindling money? And I am the one who will catch you. The wanderer had grievances he could not voice and had no idea how he had provoked this scourge. The clash had barely ended when sirens wailed outside. Over there, Sister Tin saw Van Haan in a scuffle and had meant to help, but in a blink all opponents were down. Sister Tin gaped, isn't Van Haan a powers user with a spirit attribute? Brother Tongue guessed, a hidden tiger posing as a pig, feigning weakness on purpose. Lu Triatvu said nothing, for he had long been stupefied. Soon, police rushed in and took control. We received a tip that there is fraud here, please cooperate with the investigation. Before anyone else could speak, the woman who had clung to the wanderer's leg hurried to explain, it is not fraud, you are mistaken. Van Haan pinched the wanderer's neck with her right hand and squeezed a little. He confessed at once, I am a swindler. I cannot return to the past, nor reach the future. I only wanted to cheat some money. No, you are all lying to me, all lying, the woman sobbed, collapsing. The captain sighed and waved his hand. 2 officers immediately took the wanderer away. The auntie crept over, trembling inside, girl, is this your relative? Van Haan nodded hard and solemnly replied, cops and citizens are one family, we are all kin.
The auntie's eyes went dark and this time she truly fainted. Van Han caught her and handed her to the police. She is an important witness, please take care. With the wanderer arrested and related persons led off for questioning, the lobby suddenly felt much emptier. Well done, Sister Tin ran over and slapped Van Han on the shoulder. I did not expect you to love acting like a pig to eat a tiger. Another day show me the real stuff and spar with me? She tried Van Han's shoulder with about half her strength, enough that even a powers user with physical attribute at level 3 would at least frown, yet Van Han was utterly indifferent. It is not acting like a pig to eat a tiger. I simply feel that high or low attributes are still just 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 nose, nothing remarkable. Who in this world would lay out every trump card just to flaunt how formidable they are? Sister Tin pulled out her phone and typed keywords. After a brief flurry, the screen showed a news item. Someone looked down on by relatives and friends grew angry and publicly displayed all his savings in the tens of millions along with a full asset list. Van Han, subway. An old man. A mobile phone. Did those relatives and friends regret it? Van Han asked, curious to scroll on. Who knows about the relatives and friends, but the person himself regretted it, because after the wealth went public, everyone he met, familiar or not, asked to borrow money, Sister Tin said with an uncharitable grin. Some people like to show off, some like me prefer to keep a low profile. Van Han closed the topic. When a matter is not important, do not waste thought on it. Sister Tin, excited to say more, was cut off by Lu Triat Vu. Van Han, you are a bodyguard, I brought you to protect me. You should stick to your duty, yet you ran off midway to handle personal business. Do you know how excessive that is? Sister Tin, a bodyguard who can both pre-alert and fight, and you do not praise her but scold her? In fact, I was watching you the whole time, Van Han explained. If you were in danger, I would arrive at once. Sophistry, Lu Triat Vu did not believe it. You delayed work, I cannot keep you. Starting tomorrow, do not come in. Van Han mused that living long lets you see everything. She had sent off many bosses, but this was the first to fire her of his own accord. Boss, I do not think Van Han meant it. Spare her this once, Sister Tin tried to plead. She put the swindler in jail. That 1 million you lost might even be recovered. Shut up, Lu Triat Vu snapped with unexpected force. Keep pleading and you will leave with her. Sister Tin's mouth hung open without a word. Van Han did not much mind the job, but she puzzled over why his line "you delayed work, I cannot keep you" triggered her superpower to howl, lie, lie, lie. He seemed genuine about being unable to keep her, so the problem must be in the first half. He was not firing her for delaying work. Strange. They had been together in the lobby, he was unhurt, and he had discovered a bodyguard with a high spirit attribute and other solid stats. What could he be dissatisfied about? Unless Lu Triat Vu led Brother Tongue to leave, Van Han stepped ahead and blocked them. Question. Boss, are you in league with that spacetime wanderer? Lu Triat Vu's face changed at once. What nonsense, he barked. If that is untrue, please answer directly, Van Han said. I have no obligation to answer. He tried to skirt around with Brother Tongue. Van Han pushed, hooked a leg, and flipped Brother Tongue lightly, then turned and pinned the boss to the wall, speaking without the slightest guilt. Sorry, until you answer, I cannot let you go. Are you now planning to restrict a citizen's personal freedom? NK Books. Lu Triat Vu laughed in fury. Not a bodyguard anymore, so you become a bandit? Van Han was calm. I said there are things I need to ask. Cooperate and answer, and I will stop bothering you. And if I do not, he asked. Wearing a cherubic, naive expression, Van Han spoke words that were ruthless. Lock you up and starve you for 2 or 3 days, you will change your mind. His face went green, yet he could not get free. Van Han continued, if you have done nothing against your conscience, what are you afraid of? Or must I use violence, put down Brother Tongue and Sister Tin, injure them badly, beat them till they cannot move, before you give up resisting and cooperate? Sister Tin, if the boss refuses to cooperate, why beat a fellow bodyguard half to death? If you have the ability, hammer the boss. I was just fired. Sister Tin stared at the ceiling, aggrieved. I am unemployed and no longer anyone's bodyguard. A vein throbbed on Lu Triat Vu's forehead. Fine, ask.
Whether his words were true or not, who could tell but himself? He did not know the wanderer had already been arrested and decided to fob her off with a few random answers. Van Han began, before this, did you know the wanderer was committing fraud? Lu Triat Vu, I did not. Lie. Did you take part in the fraud? Lu Triat Vu, no lie. Van Han bowed her head to think, then looked up and went bold, are you perhaps the mastermind behind the scenes? In an instant he was enraged, raised his voice, and snapped, no lie. Van Han, at first she thought the place could not function without her. The boss who treated money like dirt had lost 1 million, which might give her a chance to win it back. Later she realized that with her here, the house went down even faster. The boss colluded with others for a play, and she in one move lifted the whole enterprise away. No wonder he was angry. Done asking? Can I go now? He forced the words through gritted teeth. Done. You can go. I will call you a special ride straight to the police bureau, Van Han said while dialing the emergency line. Stop spouting nonsense without limits. Lu Triat Vu snarled, you think you can frame me at will, go to the police bureau, and the police will believe you? Van Han felt no guilt, only curiosity. Do you not know that a spirit-type esper can awaken a lie detection ability? At the bureau, once they pose a question, if your answer does not match established facts, it is a lie. Finishing, she added force to her grip and pinned him harder, you are not getting away. Shock and fury tangled in Lu Triat Vu's chest. Of course he knew the police had espers who could judge whether a person was lying with accuracy beyond any polygraph. But the Federation had so many people, they could not interrogate everyone one by one. He had a clean public identity, ordinary movements, always hiding behind the scenes, by reason, very safe. Who could have guessed he would hire a bodyguard who bore grudges against the world? The first time he brought her to the support association, she called the police and even seized a traveler on the spot. Lu Triat Vu was livid, but he did not want to carry a time bomb by his side, so he planned to dismiss her. Who knew something went wrong on the way? The other party actually blocked his exit and questioned him whether he was in league with the time travelers. He certainly would not admit it. He wanted to smooth it over, yet she seemed able to see through lies and pinpoint them with precision. Could it be? You have lie detection? Yes. Van Han admitted plainly. Lu Triat Vu almost spat blood. Had he known early that she had lie detection, he would never have answered head-on. Alas, even gold cannot buy foreknowledge. People knew she possessed super senses, but behind that she also had a second spirit-type ability, and it was exactly lie detection. Who would have thought? He struggled even harder. He knew once his lies were exposed, consequences would follow, fear surged, and he wanted to flee more. Earlier I had no proof, so I was polite by a margin. You really think I dare not use force? Van Han spoke and chopped a hand at his neck, knocking him woozy. As the dust settled, Brother Tongue, who had been tossed down, sat up, patted the dirt off, and stood wobbling. Are you sure the fraud case is tied to the boss? If you misjudge, what comes next will be real trouble. It is him, no mistake. Van Han said with certainty. Sirens wailed. Moments later several police officers and espers burst in. I called it in, the suspect is here, he is unconscious. Van Han gestured for them to take custody. Unexpectedly, the police not only took away Lu Triat Vu but also surrounded Brother Tongue and Sister Tin. The suspect is a rich second generation who keeps bodyguards year-round. There may be accomplices among them. Please cooperate with our investigation. Brother Tongue could only give up resisting. Sister Tin was speechless. I was fired already. I am no longer his bodyguard, why am I dragged in too? I know nothing about any fraud. Whether you truly do not know or pretend not to know, come with us, the Esper advised. If you are innocent, light checks will clear your name. Sister Tin. People say you should meet a good boss. If you meet an unreliable one, even going to work can end with you questioned at the bureau. Stranger still, resigning does not cut the ties. The caller should also make a statement. Facing Van Han, the the police were quite polite. Word had spread in the circle that there was a young woman who, upon sensing something off, would call in and deliver people to jail by the batch, saving many innocents. The so-called light of righteousness was just like that.
Okay. Van Han agreed. Interrogation room. A police officer and an esper sat across from her.
Why suspect Lu Triet Vu? The officer asked.
He is my boss.
He casually found a pretext to fire me. My lie detection indicated he was lying. So I wondered why he was that angry. Perhaps the fraud was tied to him.
I probed.
It really was, so I called it in, she answered.
In truth, he was just unlucky.
He had said, "You delayed work, I cannot keep you," which was judged a lie. Had he said, "From now on I do not want to see you again," it would have been judged true and nothing after might have happened.
Thus, language is a crucial art. Did you consider what if you were wrong? The officer asked.
Van Han looked guileless. I would earnestly apologize to the boss and hope he forgives my unintentional mistake. If necessary, I could even forego my salary.
The officer thought, a boss meeting you truly must concede defeat.
They then went into case details for quite a while.
May I ask something?
Seeing the interview nearing its end, she spoke.
Suddenly I really want coffee.
The officer excused himself and stepped out. The esper remained, the door closed. Only the lie detection esper and Van Han were left. They are professionally trained and highly disciplined, he said solemnly. I am different, my mouth has no filter, I dare say anything out there.
Van Han winced slightly. Is that not a problem?
Special circumstances, rapid recruitment, uneven quality is normal, he said blandly. We count as government personnel, but we are not tightly fenced in. Getting the job done is what matters.
Van Han seized the timing.
First question, some people reveal an ability and soon receive a job invitation from the Federation, but after my multiple reports I have never received one. She meant Tu Due, who knocked out a finger lion on the street and got a call, while she had thwarted many incidents with no contact. She did not necessarily want to go, it just felt odd. Formally, the pipeline is talent discovery, background investigation, verification, interview, Q&A. Only after all that do you enter. The esper's expression turned wry. You are famous, among the earliest batch discovered, and your ability is practical, but you were eliminated at background investigation. Because of my work history, she inferred. He nodded slightly. Even a tiny risk, under the evolution game's influence, becomes certainty. The Federation cannot afford to lose and will not gamble. So they simply acted as if they did not know of her, as if nothing had happened. Van Han mused that to avoid friendly fire on the military side, the Federation had seriously weighed her situation. Second question, before, calling the hotline required long explanations, now I only state the situation and people are dispatched at once.
She wanted confirmation.
Your mobile number is specially flagged, he said, knowing you have an early warning ability, the operator treats your call with exceptional priority.
Third question.
Her face grew solemn. Lu Triet Vu is difficult.
If he refuses to speak no matter what, how will you pry his mouth open? The esper smiled. Let professionals handle professional tasks.
There are over 100 spirit-type abilities alone. If lie detection cannot handle it, hypnosis can.
Last question, she said. He is a rich second generation, his family worth hundreds of millions.
I cannot understand why with that family wealth he would engage in fraud.
After results come out, may I hear the backstory? The esper considered. My mouth has never been tight. When chatting with a friend I might slip.
She understood, promptly exchanged contact, and smoothly became a friend about to chat. After finishing her statement, Van Han was free to leave, but instead she went next door to visit Sister Tin. Cells were limited, and the sweep had hauled in many, so each cell held more than 20 people and noise rose everywhere.
How are you, holding up?
Van Han brought her a boxed meal with 2 vegetarian dishes and 2 meat dishes. Hugging the meal in a corner, Sister Tin felt miserable. Oddly, among the detained she was comparatively better off. 2 people were the most unlucky. They truly knew nothing and had only been hired by a time traveler to Handle trivial office work such as registration, receivables and payments, transfers, and report forms.
The police nevertheless deemed them accomplices who aided the fraud.
Even if they did not know, prison still loomed, though circumstances were lighter and they might be sentenced from 1 to 3 years. The two were nearly insane. Looking for a job only to deliver themselves to jail felt outrageous. By comparison, Sister Tin merely assisted an investigation and would be released after, far better.
Think of pleasant things, time will pass faster. Van Han comforted.
I cannot think of anything pleasant,
Sister Tin said. Then think about the male model club. Van Han suggested, were you not very interested in it?
After a pause, Sister Tin murmured, honestly it is so-so.
I went a few times, not much fun.
Before, when men were in charge they always went to such places. After I took charge, if I did not go I felt burdened. But going was just to look, to satisfy curiosity, and I realized my own moral standard is too high to be as casual as men. I hate it when men may but women may not. In my heart it is either everyone may or no one may. In the end, whatever I did was bound by a useless moral leash.
Then change the target and do things that genuinely interest you.
Van Han encouraged, what others do as theirs, do not imitate.
As long as you do not break the law, try to make yourself happy. Work mornings and rest evenings, take weekends off, refuse overtime, firmly resist internal churn.
When free, stroll the streets, eat good food, watch films, shop, book a professional makeup artist for a lovely look, get a new hairstyle, and go to a studio for portraits.
Sister Tin's eyes lit up. Those sounded far more interesting than the male model club. The next day at noon, Van Han received a call. The investigation is out. Lu Triadvu is indeed a rich second generation, family finances are fine and his company runs normally.
But the men in his family have a hereditary medical history and often do not live past 35. Just when he believed he could only wait for death, someone contacted him. If he would provide support, they would periodically supply information, help him farm evaluations, and grant him high attribute rewards. Support meant founding a support association. On the surface it looked like a charity, but after the members were warmed up, a time traveler would take the stage, claiming he could return to the past to mend regrets, using that to steal money. And Lu Triadvu, whenever members hesitated, would pay first to set the example, build the illusion of limited quota that must be fought over to snatch, a carefully staged fake. If you want others to keep faith it is extremely hard, but those in contact with Lu Triadvu, the ones who call themselves higher humans, have quite a few high-tier espers under them. They have always been obsessed with staging terror incidents, forcing ordinary people to evolve, adding companions and eliminating those who do not meet the cut. After Lu Triadvu joined, they tacked their crime plans onto so-called predictions, leaked them to time travelers, then borrowed the travelers' mouths to retell and help recruit for the association. When the predictions came true, the victims willingly sold property for cash and handed over their savings. Lu Triadvu delivered the pooled funds to his superiors, and in exchange he intermittently received detailed intel on terror events, saved people, and farmed attributes. Just recently his body attribute rose to 4, his family's hereditary disease was cured. But he is in too deep and cannot get out. Someone wants to kill him and take his place, to be the claws of the higher humans. Those he once contacted also arranged small-scale attempts on him from time to time, not necessarily to take his life but to warn him to behave and not grow other ideas. According to him, every time he met the time traveler he wore a cloak and used a voice changer. He believed he hid himself well, that even if something blew up it would not implicate him. Who could have imagined he would lose in your hands? Van Han had guessed there was an inside story, but not that much behind it. Is the investigation finished? How many were swindled? The person across hesitated, then reported a number, 1,524, with illicit gains reaching over 100 million. Not only in our city but he also cheated in other cities, worming in to commit crimes.
Van Han?
If time travel were real and 4 people were notified a day, even a whole year would not be enough to notify 1,524 people. These past months too many accidents have happened, many suffered misfortune themselves, losing legs, losing arms.
Others lost family or friends.
They desperately hoped the time traveler's power was real, so even noticing things felt off they chose to look away. Some victims even actively helped cover it up. Saying that, the person fell silent, perhaps feeling the whole matter had gone beyond all bounds. In short, that is the cause and effect. Again, thank you for catching the prime culprit of the con. Van Han. In truth, in the workplace, a boss who wants to fire someone but does not want to tear face will find another excuse and will not speak the real reason. But because her superpower is super sense, when she detected the boss was lying and sensed there was a problem, she boldly made a move. Lu Triadvu falling into the net was purely his bad luck.
The talk ended.
The lie detector side turned and dove back into work. From what Lu Triadvu spilled, that scum group of higher humans even planned to release poison gas at subway stations to stage a major terror incident. They told him so he could stop it and farm ratings. Yet none expected he would be exposed and caught. Thus, while everything still surged ahead, the federal government already knew.
Confirmed for today, asked the head of the Special Rescue Unit.
Today, at 5 in the afternoon rush, said the hypnosis expert. The kidnappers plan to release gas at 4 subway stations. Lu Triadvu only knows one location.
Someone added, a spirit attribute Esper divined from name cards of station candidates and sifted out 3.
We will place people to ambush first, by then we will catch turtles in a jar and the one commanding him as well.
Good. Now distribute personnel.
The chief split combat strength evenly into 4 and sent teams to different stations.
Tu Dui's face sank, killing intent brimming.
A rookie whispered, "Is our team the thinnest, is that?
Why boss is upset?" A veteran skewered reality, "No. He is just mad he cannot clock out on time today. Just past 5. Tu Du tiptoed briskly into the subway station.
Though he had not worked long, his mentality had already aged. Every workday felt heavier than paying respects at a grave. At work he was half dead, off work he was brimming with life. What he looked forward to most each day was 5 in the afternoon, because his company ended at 5, which meant private time.
What to do at home? Game, shows, or novels? He fell into happy troubles.
He did not waste the wait on the platform. He took out his phone and played a few rounds of landlord to tide himself over. After a short wait, with a screech the train stopped before him. He finished a round and did not immediately start a new one. He boarded first, found a seat, then opened another. The subway sped along. Most of the time he kept his head down playing cards. Occasionally in matchmaking gaps he glanced up to see which stop. One time he looked up and saw a passenger alight while leaving his carry item on board. He tensed and shouted, "Hey, you dropped your stuff." Hearing him, the man not only did not stop but lowered his head and walked faster away. Tu Du froze, dumbfounded. If he had not been sure that the thing belonged to that man, he would have suspected he got the wrong person.
Calming down, he thought, could it be trash? Maybe the guy littered, got caught by him, felt embarrassed and ran. That was not impossible.
He weighed whether standing up to toss the trash would count as poking into others' business. Before he could decide, outside the train the man who had left was tackled by several people, pinned, and cuffed. Inside, 2 people approached the leftover item and examined it carefully. When one nodded, the other swiftly sealed the trash into an airtight box. A chain of odd moves that no one understood.
Tu Du was about to ask what they were doing when his vision blurred and went black.
Right before fainting he saw the passenger beside him clutch his chest and cough violently. It is sarin, a nerve agent. Colorless, invisible, scentless, it can enter through breathing or through the skin and eye mucosa, interfering with neurotransmitters in the body and thereby damaging the nervous system. After inhalation there will be pinpoint pupils, dyspnea, bronchospasm, and violent tremors. In severe cases one can suffocate in mere minutes. Even if rescued in time and life is saved, there may still be lasting damage to the nerves, the brain and the liver. The investigator's face was grave. The kidnappers carry a container with gas onto the train, then pierce it at the right moment and leave, and the other passengers will suffer after inhaling the poison. Casualties of the chief asked, faced dark and heavy at heart. The investigator replied, the suspects are in custody. At the other 3 stations it is relatively fine, the gas was contained, passengers evacuated, the situation under control. At one station the kidnapper poked multiple holes before leaving, so many passengers were affected at once. They have been sent to hospital for treatment. Vicious to the core, they must be punished heavily. The chief seethed, itching to tear the criminals apart. The investigator thought bitterly that citizens riding the same subway as criminals were truly unlucky. It was supposed to be a normal day, a normal end to work, a normal ride home. Who knew someone would leave something on the train? If not for reaching a stop and flowing out with the crowd, they would have stayed aboard and inhaled the gas. Yet this is not easy to publicize. Stop this once and the kidnappers will act again next time. Only by catching them can you put an end to it. Thus they could not warn beforehand, they could only lay out a silent net to arrest on the spot. Sadly the kidnappers were too cruel, punching several holes so the toxin spread faster, leading to several people being poisoned. The good news was that all the perpetrators were caught. The victims' conditions were relatively mild, not life-threatening, which was fortune within misfortune. The investigator was just secretly relieved when a deep voice said, "Not right, it is not over, this place is still very dangerous." The investigator started, blurting, "Le Triad-vous said there would be 4 stations hit. We have indeed caught 4 people and found 4 containers." Thieu Douai calmly and firmly shook his head. He was in custody a full day and night. How can you be sure there were no changes in the plan during that time? The investigator had no answer. What do you propose? The chief asked. Evacuate everyone at once, the rest fully arm, prepare defenses. With that, Thieu Douai fixed on a direction and strode off at speed. The investigator did not grasp it. The chief said gloomily, if a superpower can be used to avoid danger, it can also be used in reverse. Normally he senses where danger lies and steers clear, heading for safety. When necessary, do the opposite. The stronger the sense of danger, the more likely that is where the incident will erupt. Hearing this, the investigator felt a chill along his back and an inexplicable dread. Is he not afraid? He stammered. The chief said nothing. Thieu Douai lacks reverence for life. He does not care about others' lives, nor his own. He only cares about clocking out on time. Thinking so, the chief's expression turned aggrieved, with a faint hint of envy. Moments later, Thieu Douai dragged 2 men back and tossed them down like garbage, 2 with 4 attributes at 6+, 2 at 3+, almost no weaknesses, hiding in a corner ready to ambush. I found them and knocked them out. The chief's face changed drastically, nearly roaring, notify the other stations, pull everyone back. The gas attack is just a frontal trick, the real killer move is the espers. But it was too late, the other stations could not be reached. The chief wanted to send reinforcements, only to find the 4 stations were paired and far apart from each other. Damn it, they set this up since morning. He realized and cursed non-stop. Even so, people split up to reinforce, praying colleagues could hold out, best of all until they arrived. Because of his special combat power, Thieu Douai was cleared to go alone. When he sprinted like mad to the nearest station where the incident raged, a heavy reek of blood hit his nose. Looking out, the wounded lay everywhere, some unconscious, some perhaps breathless. Not far away espers were fighting. One lay defeated on the ground, temporarily unable to move. In a flash the downed police officer suddenly sprang up, jammed a pistol into his opponent's mouth and pulled the trigger. The shot cracked, the bullet tore through the skull, the foe collapsed. The officer laughed loud, skin can tank bullets, but the inside cannot. Weakling, you deserve to die by granddaddy's hand. Then he fell, his expression setting. He died with eyes wide, as if to make sure the esper would not get up again. Thieu Douai could not name the taste in his heart.
He rushed forward, hoisted the opponent who was grappling with their side's Esper, and in the next second snapped the man's neck. Our Esper dropped to his knees panting, watching the foe he could never beat go limp into Dewey's hands in under 3 seconds. His eyes bulged, his heart pounded, overwhelming relief flooded him. Thank heavens it is our own army. Dewey arrived in time, subdued the thug, and saved the survivors, but the other 2 subway stations were not so lucky. By the time reinforcements came, the stations were a mess, the attackers were gone, casualties were severe, and the person in charge allowed the psychic under his command to use appropriate measures to interrogate the 4 arrested suspects who had inhaled poison gas. One of them cried injustice, claiming he only took a part-time job online for good pay, daily wages, and light work, swearing he had no intention to harm anyone. But the lie-detecting psychic's cold verdict was lying, because the answers conflicted with cognition. To deceive such a psychic one must first deceive oneself. Only by truly believing one's own innocence could one hope to pass. The officer shouted, "A high-pay, daily paid, easy job, isn't that clearly a scam? You dare say you never suspected anything?" The suspect stammered, lowering his head, avoiding eye contact. The psychic said coldly, "There are 4 of you caught. If you won't confess, others will, so he'd better repent in prison." Terrified, the man hesitated, wanting to tell the truth yet fearing legal judgment. Caught in dilemma, in the next interrogation room, a young man about 23 or 24 sat calmly. After a few questions he told everything without remorse but with fanatic fervor. "I volunteered, it was a test from the great leader. Once I passed, I'd become a noble psychic, but I took the wrong turn and failed," he declared. "Why not hurt our kind? Cats and tigers once shared an ancestor. Humans and apes are the same, yet tigers don't treat cats as kin, likewise humans. If no one feels guilty killing apes, why regret ordinary humans dying?" His tone rose as he spread his arms, shouting, "The world has changed. Psychics are the lords of the next century. Ordinary humans will leave the stage of history. Whether they like it or not, that's how things will go. I merely saw reality and made a great choice." The lie-detecting psychic stared and muttered, "Madman." Even as a psychic himself, he never thought one day they'd detach from humanity and claim a new race. That was insanity. But the young man ignored him, saying, "Even if we fight, weak humans can't stop the flood of history. Reality is clear: either become psychic or die. Time will flatten all. Arguing is meaningless." Then laughed eerily, "When all humans are dead and only psychics survive, who will object?" In the end, even the police had to admit he was completely insane. The person in charge originally hoped to learn about the attacker through these 4, but they rambled to dodge guilt, making excuses all refuted by the psychic, who exposed their lies one by one. Then after long pressure the police finally learned they were peripheral members seeking to become core ones by joining the terrorist strike. The goal simple: create incidents, awaken human potential, produce more psychics, and if they died it proved their genes were inferior, death not regrettable. Hearing the report, the leader's blood pressure spiked. Another batch of weird fanatics, subordinates added. They were all following orders, knew nothing about the attacker, some unaware their leader had planned dual attacks, poison gas for civilians, assassination for officials, initial judgment. They hated the government, cruel methods, likely with prior murder records. Also the subway case leaked to the media and was now blowing up online. Tonight no one would sleep. Sighing, the leader resumed work, issuing orders. After the subway terror news broke, countless citizens were stunned, lamenting how unsafe the world had become, saying apocalypse through evolution wasn't an exaggeration. Some said survival meant nothing, only the strong ruled while ordinary people got trampled. Others argued psychics were still citizens deserving equality, but replies came: equality is what weak people say. Those who can't climb just drag others down. Someone shared, "I'm not fully ordinary, my attributes increased 1 or 2 ranks, yet I've been stepped on endlessly. I swore not to hide again, I'll go into danger, challenge dungeons to grind points." Another mocked, "Why are humans still naive? Don't you know how vital attributes and powers are? Even workplaces now favor psychic priority promotion, yet you say we're the same. Even kids know we're not." Others added, "Ordinary folks meeting criminals end up hurt, crippled, dead. Psychics meet criminals, pin them down, hand them to police. Even if they fail, they escape alive. If you're capable, tell criminals to treat everyone equally." More said, "Haven't you noticed? Fewer people surfing online, many accounts suddenly silent since a certain day. Not fear-mongering, but many have disappeared." Conclusions turned grim. The Federation's done, humanity's done. In this mess what can I do? End myself calmly. Someone sighed, "The government truly can't be trusted, only self-rescue works." And another quipped, "Trust myself?
I'm less reliable than the government. Over time, despair spread across the internet. Since the incident, self-harm cases have surged. The Ministry of Propaganda decided to launch a superhero, said the minister gravely. The rescue department head looked baffled. Then do it yourself. Why call me? Every minute overtime adds up. Yet the minister declared, after much screening, everyone agreed your action team Captain Xiao Duwei is the best candidate. The head was stunned. Who? Your Captain Xiao Duwei, the minister repeated. In both image and strength he qualifies. The head's heart screamed. The Federation hero who never works overtime. To him the minister seemed an undercover enemy. Look at my whole department, all more professional. If this backfires, citizens will trust us even less. But the minister reasoned, didn't he stay behind after the subway incident, join the next mission, rush to aid, and save survivors? The head went silent. He himself worked overtime daily yet no praise. Xiao Duwei did it once and got honored, so one extra shift changes destiny now, he thought, glaring as if the minister were a spy. The minister sighed. Firefighters, doctors, police once gained stats fast. We hoped to train talents, but they stalled around 6 or 7, later only S-rank or higher rewards stats, maybe due to limited potential or repetitive runs causing imbalance punished by the system. In the end they're mid-tier fighters, not heroes. Some have high attributes, breaking 9, but duplicate powers. In all, Xiao Duwei still performs best. After long silence the head asked, no other options? 2, the minister said frankly, I plan to launch 3 heroes, 2 others are special forces, a man fond of fighting, once disciplined, and a woman with spiritual stat 9 but weaker combat overall scores below Xiao Duwei. The head covered his face. No one strong, agile, virtuous? Come on, the minister scoffed, nobody's perfect. Propaganda is about dimming flaws, boosting merits, giving people hope. The head still resisted, prompting the minister to ask, did Xiao Duwei commit any grave sin worth your struggle? He thought this was mere notification, the data ready, promotional film in progress, but the head hesitated before saying, everyone else stays late. If someone else clocked out on time, they'd feel guilty and help out. But Xiao Duwei leaves right on time without a care. The minister paused, then sighed softly, just us here. Honestly, are you jealous he leaves on time daily? Be serious, the head snapped. I'm not joking. The minister shrugged. You stay late by choice, he doesn't join or interfere. How does that make him an outcast? Listen to yourself, is that human logic? Choice? Work's endless. Without overtime we'd delay cases for half a month, the head yelled, the minister too tired to argue, concluding, if no more objections, it's settled, go back to work. The head watched him leave helplessly, thinking that if things turned bad later, he must record that he tried to oppose it, though unsuccessfully. The Minister of Propaganda found Xiao Duwei, repeated his proposal with full confidence that everything was settled, yet Xiao Duwei bluntly refused, I'm not interested. The minister froze on the spot, trying to persuade, this is a rare honor, many people dream of taking such a role. Xiao Duwei replied indifferently, then go find them. The minister hesitated, is there a specific reason for your refusal? If there's a difficulty, you can tell me, I might help. Xiao Duwei said firmly, I don't believe in the existence of superheroes, and I despise individual heroism. If you ignore my personal will, I'll resign and file a lawsuit. The minister was dumbfounded, wanting to grab Xiao Duwei's collar in frustration. He hadn't said anything excessive, so how did it escalate to resignation so quickly? Taking a deep breath, he forced himself to stay calm, then suddenly had an idea. If we don't push the superhero image but instead make a public campaign featuring all government employees, would you join? All employees? Yes, he replied confidently, each one records 1 to 3 short clips for the announcement video. Fine, said Xiao Duwei, thinking that if everyone joined, he'd blend right in, unnoticeable.
NK Books.
That night, Xiao Duwei dreamed of his childhood. His biological father was a drunken brute who would beat him with his fists and later with bottles. He starved, couldn't sleep, and had no strength to resist, only enduring in silence. One night, his drunken father shoved him into a post, his head hit hard, forming a huge lump, and he lay there unable to rise. Playing dead again, the man muttered incoherently, grabbing his bottle and staggering out. In that moment, Xiao Duwei realized either the man would die, or he would, but one of them must die for the other to be free. Too weak to fight, he recalled hearing adults say, they say industrial alcohol kills, but I've drunk it, it just tastes sharp and is cheaper than real liquor.
What if he poured industrial alcohol into his father's bottle? Would the man finally disappear forever? The thought refused to fade. Before acting, Xiao Duwei told Yun Han, I might not live long. If one day I die, help me report him. He tried not to cry, yet tears fell uncontrollably. He saw it as a battle where only one could survive. If he died, he hoped Yun Han would send the man to prison. Unexpectedly, Yun Han said, endure a bit longer, 3 days at most, and it'll be over. If there was anyone worth trusting in the world, it was Yun Han. He decided to believe her and delayed the plan, staying away from home. Unexpectedly, before he acted, the man died first, poisoned by industrial alcohol. If Xiao Duwei hadn't waited, he would have believed his father died by his own hand. Even in death, that man would have made him bear the sin. At the funeral, Xiao Duwei looked at the corpse without sorrow, only satisfaction. He was finally free. But luck didn't stay. His aunt pitied him and adopted him, but treated him differently. He ate leftovers, slept on the floor, did all chores, and when she was angry, she beat him with a feather duster. The first time, he endured, thinking one must be humble when living off others, but the beatings became frequent. On the 6th time, when she raised the duster again, he grabbed it, calmly saying, under 14, killing doesn't bring criminal charges. Aunt, do you want to risk that? She froze, goosebumps rising. Who taught you to say that? If you don't study hard, how will you find work, have a future? He sneered, a woman who beats children, what kind of future is that? With a snap, he broke the duster, you'd better not provoke me. Terrified, she fled. Later, Yun Han came with a contract Xiao Duwei had signed, offered 50,000, and took him away, returning the debt slip to him with a smile. All the bad ones are gone now, no one will bully you again. Xiao Duwei smiled silently. After the funeral, though still thin, his strength and speed grew. No one could bully him again, not even adults. Living with Yun Han, he was truly happy. Just as his past faded, those who once tormented him returned. Wanting a peaceful life with Yun Han, he thought he'd forgive them if they stayed away, but trouble came seeking him. Afraid of escalation, he fought back mildly, even took punches on purpose. Yun Han scolded him for being soft and taught him to strike effectively. He realized he'd never meet another Yun Han, someone who protected him, taught him to fight back, and made his bullies kneel to apologize. Meanwhile, in the next room, a middle-aged man typed quickly, Dream Diver, situation changed. Government may have predicted our move and implanted false memories. Leader, explain. Dream Diver, the dream shows abuse and humiliation, typical background for a serial killer. But based on Xiao Dui's real record, he's optimistic, diligent, positive. These must be false memories, meaning the Federation set a trap for me. Dream Diver, my ability is to enter and weave dreams, I'm weak in real combat. If exposed, I won't escape alive. Request to withdraw. He thought his reasoning was clear, but the reply came, Leader, continue. The harsh life is the real memory. The man bit his lip, lay back down, and the dream resumed. Xiao Duwei grew happily beside Yun Han, until she brought home a stray dog. Sit, Yun Han said, and the dog obeyed. Shake, and it offered its paw. Even without command, it rolled over to show its belly. Yun Han laughed joyfully, forgetting Xiao Dui's presence. He, jealous for the first time, tugged her sleeve, I'm obedient too, look at me. But she kept playing with the dog. Jealousy burned in his chest. The next morning, he found Yun Han looking for someone to adopt the dog. Joy flickered in his eyes, you're not keeping it? I already have you, can't afford another, she said sternly. Chosen again, he vowed to be the most obedient. Watching this, the Dream Diver murmured, too much, this can't be real. Yet he continued manipulating the dream, testing Xiao Dui's core with lines like, the world is rotten, let's destroy and rebuild. Xiao Duwei smiled, okay. Whatever the Dream Diver made Yun Han say, kill, hate, destroy, Xiao Duwei only replied, okay, over and over until it became terrifying. The Dream Diver jolted awake, trembling, typing his extreme anti-human tendencies like a lunatic. The leader replied, exactly,
that means it's his true subconscious.
The man was horrified. Was this really an official agent?
The leader said, continue. Forced to obey, he lay down again and forged a scene of Yun Han's death in a subway explosion. When Xiao Dui arrived, bodies were everywhere, one face familiar, Yun Han's. His eyes reddened, his cries tore the dream apart. The dream diver panicked, realized he'd awakened something terrible. Xiao Dui's spirit surged beyond control, his psychic power rose past 8, overwhelming the diver's 7.2 limit. Too late to escape, his mind spun, vision blurred. When he opened his eyes again, he was drooling and laughing mindlessly. Leader, report status.
Speak. No reply.
Moments later, all chat logs vanished, history deleted, as if nothing had ever happened. News said a sushi shop found cooked blue-ringed octopus. Real life remains perilous, everyone, stay cautious. I saw another post, a company accountant stole everything, leaving only $20. Comments joked, should have hired 2 accountants to watch each other.
The Yang aftermath remains severe, hidden at first, but
NK
once unearthed,
books.
undeniable.
I'm exhausted, the next part may be saved for later release.
===74 74.
Night pressed heavy over the land, and Veen Hu fled in panic without choosing a path, running with all her might while the suspicious figure in black with a mask followed unhurriedly behind. At last, exhausted, she stopped struggling and chose to face reality. Tell me who you are and why you're after me, can you make it clear? If you don't know anything, why did you run? The masked man said with disdain. Veen Hu fell silent, cursing inside that dressed so suspiciously anyone would bolt. Run slower and you're done. Knowing she was outmatched, she yielded. One more trouble is worse than one less. I don't want to get involved in messes. Then flipped her tone. But if you need help, I'll do my best. For had she escaped just now, it would have been another story.
The masked man gave a faint, unreadable snort. Where is Intrake?
Veen Hu groaned inwardly and put on a face of deep grief. The boss accidentally drank polychlorinated biphenyl and was diagnosed with liver cancer. Not long ago the hospital burned. He moved poorly and could not get out. The masked man stared a long time and declared, "You did not save him." Veen Hu said nothing. Since he was hospitalized, his parents and brothers never came. Even old subordinates turned their coats. He raged daily, more frantic by the day. She too wanted to run. Yet outside she was short of money and leaving meant debt collectors. At that moment the boss proposed, "When I die I'll leave my entire estate to you, on one condition, teach those wolves who bite the hand that feeds a lesson." She bloomed inside but wore hesitation. "Boss, they are many and strong, I'm alone," and Trake urged her again and again, even hinting she could work in the shadows. After much persuasion she agreed through gritted teeth, yet to protect herself she demanded the will be made before a lawyer, and Trake agreed. He believed cancer was chronic and he had years left, enough to amend the will if she displeased him. The urgent thing was to soothe her and keep her close. Once the will was done she thumped her chest, promising she would never spare those faithless ones, then left the ward to find a way. And at that very time a great fire rose at the hospital, and Trake, with liver cancer and numb limbs, unable to move well, finally perished in the sea of flames, while Veen Hu, after finishing procedures and paying taxes, received the money smoothly without confronting the in-group's financial eldest young master head-on. Everything went well until the masked man asked, "I'm only one person with limited ability, and I was out working then, so I couldn't save the boss," she said apologetically. In this world some with powers can detect lies, so she avoided direct answers and used a narrative, simple and factual, such that even a lie detector would struggle to name a fault, because it was true, though certain details were concealed. The masked man studied her carefully and concluded, "You deliberately left him alone. In recent months accidents multiply, and if no one is by his side, the chance of an unexpected death is very high." She strove to argue, "The boss ordered me to go out on errands. If Intrake is dead, keeping you is useless." The masked man would not listen and, with a raised hand, snapped her neck. Veen Hu fell to the ground, dead with eyes open. The masked man exhaled deeply, voice full of weariness and gloom. "The future has changed, it's nothing like what I saw." He was a spirit-type ability user whose power was to glimpse fragments of the future, yet at some point he found reality in what he saw diverging slightly, and as time passed the gap widened until those fragments nearly lost reference value. In the fragments, Tu Dui was Intrake's bodyguard, used Intrake to seize the in-group's finance, and enjoyed vast funds to spend at will. He and Tu Dui were on the same side, both disgusted with this filthy world, wanting to destroy it and build a new order.
Tu Dewey used powers to publish daily the locations of government leaders for terrorist groups to assassinate, and with a premonition ability he escaped pursuit time and again, living safely. In the fragments, the Federation was already in great chaos. Ordinary citizens felt unsafe, trusting no one but themselves. Robbery, theft and murder played out everywhere, while in reality, lacking Tu Dewey's aid, no matter how he rolled he could not stir a ripple. At this moment he even suspected the images were not the future but a parallel world. Already irritable, he then received messages from his useless subordinates begging to retreat. Dreamwalker, emergency, requesting withdrawal. He had to reply, leader, continue, leader, the unendurable living environment is the true memory. A moment later the underling wailed again, Dreamwalker, he is extreme, with anti-human tendencies. Like a madman, the masked man wanted to hit someone and ordered them to dive again. Hoping to clarify what happened and why Tu Dewey acted unlike the fragments, yet long after there was no reply, trash, he cursed through tight breath, and at last admitted that without Tu Dewey nothing went well. Tu Dewey suffered sleep paralysis all night and woke to daylight. He skipped washing, circled the room in haste looking for Van Han. She came out of storage and he wrapped her up at once. She did not struggle. What's wrong? He spoke low. A nightmare, a whole night of anxious recollections and bad dreams was more exhausting than a month of non-stop work. Thinking carefully he realized he had not recalled those things for a long time, so surely the propaganda minister was to blame. He had called him a superhero. A thug like him already found it hard to pass as ordinary, now even picked as a superhero for publicity. What a joke. In his heart Tu Dewey drew a little villain and pinned all accounts on the minister. Van Han laughed. Dream scenes are false, they cannot be real, then asked curiously, what did you dream of to scare you like that? Tu Dewey could not say. It was Van Han asking him to destroy the world, Van Han falling into a pool of blood, each dream more outrageous than the last. Worse, he believed them and woke with a jolt to a system prompt. Violent emotional fluctuation detected. Your potential is triggered. Acuity plus 0.4. Spirit plus 2. So overcapitalized a business. In paralysis it's hard to distinguish falsehood from reality. Anyway, you're fine and that's good. He hugged Van Han like a koala, refusing to let go for a long while. Seeing he would not talk, she did not press and let him hold her. He took the chance to cling closer, warm, alive, a beating pulse, tangible sensations that separated reality from dream and calmed his stirred heart. After chatting with Tu Dewey, the propaganda minister's mind expanded, and he changed the planned God-making project into a series about all active staff. With too much live material he decided on a series, each video 10 minutes. When the first was done he shared it in the internal group under the fine name of Respecting Human Rights. After colleagues confirmed no issues he would release it. Truth be told he felt it superb, no flaws to pick, he only wanted praise. Let me see what it looks like. The head of the Special Rescue Department clicked it during a lull. The video began. The clock on the wall showed 10:40 at night and the head still buried in work. Just after 5 in the morning the dispatcher received a rescue call. Police who had been yawning and about to rise to wash and eat were mobilized at once. At the subway station ordinary officers defeated superpowered criminals at the cost of their lives. During the chase Tu Dewey, fearless and valiant, single-handedly subdued more than a dozen powered offenders. Carefully chosen photos matched with piercing anthems stabbed straight at tears, and the video ended with a bold line, "We are still striving, we have not given up. That dog really can cut, no wonder he's propaganda minister." The head sniffled while cursing. What a lousy video, too trash. In the end the video passed by unanimous vote. Everyone praised this version as more moving than the superhero cut. The minister, reaping praise, joyfully posted it, and it drew a huge response. Almost every refresh saw likes and comments surge. The comments were kindly. Sobs, this made me cry. The government really did well this time. Knowledge gained. If this happened during regular commute hours, it might take half a month to process. To avoid backlog, government staff have had to work overtime for months. Knowledge gained. Though officials were ambushed and fell in the subway terror attack, they blocked the poison release and saved thousands and tens of thousands. They were not perfect, but they did their utmost. Please trust the government. Had there not been so many no confidence votes half a year ago, things would not have become as they are. Last year I foolishly waived my ballot, even not knowing why the government did that. I won't oppose it, facts prove I was right. Good gracious, who is that soldier bro who nabbed more than a dozen criminals in one go? Give me a minute, I want all his info. Suddenly I grasp what the aesthetics of violence means. He's so strong, I'm so into him. I never understood the worship of strength, now I suddenly do. I remember him when the Great Bridge collapsed. He saved more than 30 people. He's that emotionless rescue machine with sky-high efficiency. Beneath the video, discussion of Tu Dewey towered, nearly equaling the rest combined. and as if by tacit pact the minister had posted only 2 work photos of him, leaving Dewey no pretext to vent anger. Someone wondered, strange, why is discussion about Dewey so high? To which the propaganda minister remarked that the public lacks seeds handsome, outstanding in ability, with overwhelming presence. Seeing it himself, no wonder the crowd plucked him from the masses at a glance, and Drake's intended end was to die in the hospital fire. Had I kept the 6 days a week pace I should have finished writing this arc before the incident. Indeed, I worried readers would doubt it, that hospitals are safe and won't see massive fires anyway. Now you all know it's entirely possible. Earlier there was a transparent wall skit, our heroine's romance is not romance but saving the world. Sound the clappers, and Drake is the boss whom Dewey resents. He hired the heroine then got that liver cancer thing, and Veen Hugh is the only bodyguard who stayed by him afterward. Because the released videos received such a warm response, the Minister of Propaganda struck while the iron was hot and put out the second and then the third, in apartment blocks, villas, parks, malls, riverbanks, on the streets. Everywhere you looked were the busy figures of government staff. The 2 people selected as superheroes also quietly showed up on camera. The man carried someone through the rain, seeming to use all his strength to get the injured citizen onto an ambulance, and the woman, in a meeting, sensed a major accident and alerted her colleagues. Everyone united and worked hard to reduce casualties. After watching, people were moved to tears. Boo-hoo, once again I realize I am a little good for nothing. Even if the Federation does some things imperfectly, it is still 100 times stronger than me saving myself. Every time someone says so many died and the government did nothing, but have they considered that without the government the death toll might be threefold, fivefold, even tenfold? Truly, stop scolding. Plenty of government workers have died from exhaustion, fighting like that and still getting cursed. Is that not unjust to them? Disasters are heartless yet people are compassionate. The fault lies with circumstance, not with the government. Unwittingly, public opinion began to shift. Some netizens even wrote that they drew strength from the videos, that if they strove a bit more, humankind could overcome disaster. Seeing things develop for the better, a staffer fretted, are the 2 selected superheroes slipping in discussion volume? For most comments said things like government workers this and that. I feel the government has it hard, and very few declared this superpower user is truly amazing, my idol. The Minister of Propaganda said gravely, that is why earlier I wholeheartedly recommended Dewey among the selected heroes. He feared Dewey might turn his back and run, so he only uploaded 2 work photos, while the other 2, who truly fought, had 3 action shots each. Yet the result was that Dewey drew the highest discussion and left the deepest impression. The other 2 were not ineffective, but comparisons are cruel. Put side by side they were easily judged lacking. They are all 9+ superpower users. How can the discussion gap be that big? The staffer puzzled. The minister smiled thinly. No man, a 9+ power attribute super, is a rugged human but still within the human category. Cat High, a 9+ spirit attribute super, has saved many, but such merit is easily diluted by others' work. Whereas Dewey, he looked at the edited slice of daily footage and sighed, he is a wild behemoth, one against dozens, one against 100, as an enemy he inspires fear, but fortunately he is our army's friend, with him around the people can sleep more soundly. As if to prove him right, the official microblog manager turned with a peculiar look to ask for instructions. Many people are messaging the official account asking for Dewey's personal items, preferably photos or postcards, saying they will tuck them under pillows to ward off evil. The minister's face darkened and he snapped, release what? Release nothing. Do you not know how busy supers are? Then I will decline tactfully. Yes, absolutely refuse. Government staff barely have time to sleep. Where would they find time to make memorabilia? Speak plainly and the people will understand. Though his mouth said so, in his heart he thought that if the man was pushed too hard he might flee at any time. Then forget talismanic postcards, even the person himself would be gone. Understood. With clear orders the staffer dove back into work. Watching the internet's winds all but reverse, the minister exhaled in satisfaction. Lately, Dewey had no luck. Those propaganda videos with everyone participating looked ordinary, yet for some reason only he kept getting singled out and discussed over and over. He brooded, how did they spot him? Why did they always catch him so precisely? Thinking got him nowhere, so in his heart he ticked the Minister of Propaganda once, then twice, then thrice. Later he longed for a chance to sack the man, but never found an opening. Meanwhile, since the nightmare, he clung to Van Hahn ever tighter, tagging along for no reason. He knew it was not good, but once she left his sight he felt inexplicably uneasy, afraid someone would steal her away. After days of back and forth, Van Hahn
Set the little pup before her for some ideological education. Do not worry too much, with my abilities, dying is very difficult. Xiao Dui bowed and humbly accepted the critique, secretly planning to remain incorrigible, half angry and half amused. Van Hun fetched paper and pen and scribbled a few lines. Here, these are my attributes and abilities, he took and read carefully. For faculties attributes, power, 8.7, agility, 8.7, constitution, 9.1. Spirit, 9.5, totaling 36, power attribute abilities, close combat mastery, cold weapons mastery, agility attribute abilities, ultra-fast neural reflex, reaction speed extremely swift, can even snatch a bullet by hand, rapid escape, in any environment can quickly find the optimal retreat route, constitution attribute abilities, tough, super resistance, super regeneration, spirit attribute abilities, lie detection, death countdown, super sense. He gazed at the page and thought. It is not that I lack crisis response, I have simply never courted danger so never used them, she said sternly. I revere death, keep away from it, and will not dance on its edge. He took the pen, jotted a few lines, and handed it back. Mine, for faculties attributes, power, 8.5, agility, 8.4, constitution, 9.2, spirit, 9.1, total 35.2, power abilities, close combat mastery, lethal strike, agility abilities, stealth, lowering. One's presence, swift flight, constitution abilities, tough, super resistance, super regeneration, spirit abilities, precognition alarm, tracking, eye of truth. What is seen is truth and no trick can hide it. She finished and was surprised. We had the same earlier attributes. How did your growth fall behind? Are you not employed in a government department? All small cases. He paused, then added, to be precise. Before things can get big, a spirit attribute super senses them and the government sends someone to shut them down. Take the amusement park incident, wait a bit longer and an SS rating was possible, but the moment it was discovered it hit the papers, ending with a pitifully low evaluation that barely added attributes. He left unsaid that in teamwork, credit gets thinned. Everyone knows it, but it remains conjecture without proof. In a flash, a notion lit in her mind. To secure SS, even SSS ratings, the key is not the superpower user but the people. Only when enough civilians are dragged in and the super resolves the crisis can those ratings be reached. Thinking so made her back go cold. So-called evolution may from the very start mean growing strong by stepping on ordinary folks' bones. While she shivered, he folded the paper neatly and said with satisfaction, whether for faculties or abilities, we look perfectly matched, truly a destined pair. She could not help laughing and at once all the gloom was gone. Recently, she found herself unlucky. Tossing the bodyguard job aside was one thing, a missing boss was not a big matter. Exposing a mass fraud ring and sending the ringleader and accomplices to prison still earned only a B grade since most victims lost money but not lives. Understandable. After refreshing her resume, the number of companies that proactively called her shrank. Nothing like the fanfare half a month ago, highly suspect. She wanted to ask what was wrong with the world. At last she got a call, but it was not an interview notice, rather a request to provide contacts for her last job and the one before that for phone verification. She was dumbfounded. Onboarding now needed a background check. Even civil service exams were not that strict. Forgive the offense, the interviewer said wearily. Things are chaotic. Some supers deliberately frame bosses, and the slightest thing ends up at the police bureau and the hospital. For our boss's safety we must investigate before interviewing. She fell silent. Her previous boss was Lu Triatvu, whom she had just sent to jail. The one before was a garment factory proprietress, also currently in re-education. Before that was Intrake, who developed cancer from polychlorinated biphenyl exposure. Tracing further back it was death and disability, jail and jail, bankruptcy and bankruptcy, shutters down and shutters down. Even if she wanted to cherry-pick good words, her so-called glorious work history left not a single decent reference. In the end she said, I will look elsewhere. The interviewer sighed with regret and hung up without hesitation. She thought sorrowfully that if every company background checked first, she might never find work again. Too crestfallen, she went out to clear her head. Along the street many shops were shuttered. A few eateries still open seemed to do brisk business. At one line a man rushed up to scold, at a time like this you still eat out daily, not afraid of something happening. The person in line shot back, then what should I do? I crave only this place's flavor, if I can never eat it again, I would rather die. The newcomer was left speechless. The customer added, I buy here every day. If something were going to happen it would have happened long ago. Why wait until today? The other thought it made sense and changed tune. Fine, buy me a portion too. Silence fell around. Thus a thriving shop has its reasons, same ingredients and dish, yet others cannot produce that flavor. If you want it you must buy it.
curious how good it could be for people to crave it. With the world on fire, she joined the end of the line. It was a bakery for griddled buns with 3 flavors: white sugar filling, black sesame filling, and salt and pepper. Because they used an oven, each batch yielded a fixed count. This customer wanted 8, that one bought 6. One batch could not cover 3 people. After a short wait, it was finally her turn. Just as a fresh batch came out, a wave of aroma rolled under the veilcloth. 3 white sugar, 3 black sesame, 4 salt and pepper. She wanted to taste all and to save some for Chaudelet, so she ordered 10. The owner swiftly bagged them. Please take them. She pulled out a black sesame bun and took a light bite. It was a little hot, but she was a super and unafraid. The crust was crisp and airy. The filling was like syrup, sweet and fragrant without cloying. Truly a flavor remembered even into the apocalypse. She sighed and bit again. The bun round and a touch larger than her palm. She ate in steady mouthfuls and soon finished one. Try the salt and pepper. That one carried a savory perfume with a faint lingering sweetness, just enough to scratch the itch and heighten the bun's richness. A bit strange, not certain yet. Try again. And so she ate the rest. Too many buns made her thirsty. She glanced around and slipped into a milk tea shop still open. Not long after she left, the temp worker cried out, "We are out of flour." The owner, busy tallying cash, did not look up. "There is more in the storeroom." "I am swamped, fetch it yourself." "Got it." The temp turned to the stockroom to retrieve it. After browsing a milk tea shop, Van Han wandered along the street near the bakery, and by the time she returned it had been over 1 hour. She saw a long line at the door, and floating above heads were, "Predicted death in 2 hours 10 minutes 46 seconds, predicted death in 2 hours 16 minutes 39 seconds, predicted death in 2 hours 43 minutes 56 seconds, and Van Han was stunned. Are they lining up to receive death? The shop owner was slipping pastries into a bag, ready to take payment. "Here, 8 pastries, payment received." The customer had just paid and reached for the bag when Van Han pressed his hand down. "There's a problem with the pastries, do not eat them." The owner was perplexed. "They're freshly made." What problem could there be? The others ate and nothing happened. He was unlike some merchants who snap back when questioned. Instead, he first worried. What if she was telling the truth? A customer noticed Van Han was holding the same kind of pastry and gasped, "Did you buy earlier? Did your friend eat and have a problem?" NK Books. The person at the front, who had just paid, flinched and pulled his hand back. "I'll pass on these, give me a refund." The crowd buzzed with guesses, and Van Han had to raise her voice. "What I bought before had no issue, it's this fresh batch that has a problem. I am a super ability with the intuition attribute, and I have a bad premonition. To avoid wronging anyone, let's call the police first." The onlookers found that reasonable and began to place emergency calls. Just then some people grew anxious to leave, and Van Han blocked them. "Before the police arrive, everyone should stay at the scene." Someone blinked round eyes. "I need to hurry home to cook," another said. "I have to pick up my kid from daycare," and Van Han could no longer press them. At that moment a man and a woman arrived and showed credentials. "We're the neighborhood patrol. We came as soon as we got the report. If you must go, please leave your identification so we can contact you if needed." Everyone cooperated, and Van Han, relieved, handed matters to the proprietor and the patrol while she stood aside and watched them confer. After quick registration, those in a rush left and those unhurried stayed to gawk. The patrol asked, "What happened?" The owner shook his head. "No idea." Seeing business halted. "If someone says the pastries have problems, he cannot sell. I am a super ability with the intuition attribute." Van Han identified herself. "1 hour ago I bought pastries here and sensed nothing wrong. After a short stroll I returned and perceived this fresh batch has an issue. Eating them could cause an incident." The owner protested. "Impossible. I followed the same steps as always, same tools." The temp worker beside him whispered, "The flour." The owner slapped his forehead. "We ran out of flour just now. I went to the storeroom to get a new sack, but what could be wrong with that?" He usually did exactly this and had never erred. The patrol exchanged a look. "Where's the flour?" The owner obediently brought it out. "All here, bought from the supermarket." The patrol called the forensics lab for support. Before they arrived, someone nearby shouted that his friend had suddenly clutched his belly and collapsed. The owner looked and saw the fallen man still holding a pastry from his shop, and cold sweat streamed. "Officers, I'm being framed. I did nothing but bake as usual. Save the claims." The patrol cut him off, briskly asking, after switching flour, "How many pastries did you make, and how many people bought them?" The owner strained to recall, heart sinking. "More than a dozen people, some ate on the spot, some said they'd take them home for the family." The patrol immediately radioed the bureau to issue a stop. Not far away, a bespectacled man lay on the ground groaning while his friend fumbled to call an ambulance. A short while Later the lab arrived, sampled, then said, "The flower was poisoned, the toxin is very strong, at a dose sufficient to cause death." The crowd erupted, some instinctively backed away, some whispered, some hurled newly bought pastries into the trash. Better to lose money than gamble with poison. Seeing disaster loom, the owner grabbed the patrol officer's sleeve in desperation. "Officers, this has nothing to do with me. Please investigate thoroughly," the patrol said. "Let's check the storeroom first," and headed there with the lab. Van Han didn't budge and even thought of going home now that the police had taken over. Her presence didn't matter. As she pondered, someone spoke up, "Thanks to you, or else a great tragedy would have happened." Van Han sighed. "I never imagined it. I was just an unemployed woman taking a walk to ease my mind and stumbled into this. One can only say death blows like the wind, often right by our side." Hearing she was unemployed, the person's interest piqued and he pulled out a business card. "I'm Ma Zhishao, I run a business. Would you consider joining our company?" "Would that be appropriate?" she said, yet still accepted the card. Ma Zhishao replied solemnly, "My elders at home love these pastries and asked me to buy them. Without your warning, I might have brought poison back and my whole family could have been harmed. You saved us, of course I want to show gratitude. By the way, what position would you like? I'll see if we can arrange it." He wasn't making a casual offer. First, she had stepped up on her own, which showed goodwill. Second, her prediction proved accurate, which showed no small intuition. Taken together, she was talent with both ability and character, worth recruiting. "I don't have any particular title in mind," Van Han thought. These days a reliable job is rare enough. Why be picky? Ma Zhishao discovered more of her strengths. Cooperative, even-tempered, not choosy. He promised at once, "All right, I'll set something up for you when we're back." The patrol combed the storeroom and still found nothing definite, so they decided to invite the relevant parties to the bureau for statements and continue investigating. Van Han was asked to the city police bureau to give testimony, and by the time she was released it was already dark. She groaned. What even was that day? After cross-checking interviews, the lie detection ability unit determined the shop owner and the temp worker bore no suspicion, and a longer investigation began. If they could find a suspect, they could confirm the culprit, but the problem was they didn't know who had done it. The police began reviewing surveillance around the shop day and night. After 4 days, when Van Han had almost forgotten the incident, the culprit was caught. The investigative report showed the culprit was the owner's old friend. Years ago his mother had needed surgery. He ran everywhere to borrow money and came to the owner, who had just paid a deposit and was preparing to quit and open his shop. "How much are you short?" the owner asked over chat. "A bit over 100,000, the friend replied, weariness in his tone. Friends either just married and are struggling with a mortgage, or they live for pleasure and spend everything, with no thought for tomorrow. I've tried many, but no one will lend. What about your home? If you sell it you'd have cash, right?" "Sold. My mother and I still rent a room outside." The owner was torn. After graduation he'd been belittled working for others and had long vowed that once he saved enough he'd quit to start his own business. To reach that goal he'd lived frugally and toiled for years, and now, just as he had scraped the funds together and his dream was about to begin, his old friend showed up asking to borrow. This loan was unlike any other. If he lent it, he would have to keep his head down as an employee again, and by the time he saved up later he'd be older, with family burdens, perhaps without the strength to break out. But the friend's mother truly needed money. The owner thought all night, chain-smoked, and next morning messaged, "I'll give you the capital I saved to open my shop. Take it and use it. Saving a life comes first." The friend was overjoyed. "Thank you, you're a true brother." Before transferring, the owner made it clear, "You picked a bad time. I've already paid a deposit and signed the contract, and deposits are non-refundable. I can transfer you 100,000, and later you just pay me back 120,000. The friend balked. "Borrow 100,000 and repay 120,000. Those terms are a bit steep, and you'll definitely get your deposit back." The owner's finger froze above the send button. A deposit is not the same as an advance payment. Break the contract and you forfeit it. The timing of the loan request truly was impossible. If it had been 2 days earlier before signing, none of this would be an issue. He had thought that explaining clearly would earn understanding, but the friend's words made it obvious he refused to shoulder breach of contract costs. Then what should the owner betray his contract for a friend, abandon a life plan for the friend's mother, and in the end eat the penalty himself? That extra 20,000 wasn't interest at all but the deposit. He merely wanted to recoup his principal. Whichever way he weighed it, it felt wrong. The friend messaged again, "I spoke out of turn. You're the only one willing to help right now. High terms are fair. Don't worry, on the 100,000 you lend, when I repay I'll add interest at 50% per year for you." The owner could not hold back. Business runs on good faith. If you sign and then breach, you alone bear the penalty. That
120,000 is my shop capital, and from beginning to end I'm not taking a single coin of interest from you. If you don't want it, consider this never said," and he blocked him. The owner fumed. He hadn't planned to make his friend sign an IOU or even checked if he could repay. He had decided to help, and yet the friend refused even to cover the penalty. The two became adversaries, and the owner felt like a chump, so he resolved to forget the whole thing, treat it as if it never happened, and push forward with his startup plan. In a flash, years passed. The owner succeeded with a thriving shop, married, had a child, while the friend who hadn't secured the surgery funds lost his mother, then drifted through rentals, with rent consuming sometimes 1/3, sometimes half his income, the rest split across food and necessities, barely saving anything while old debts still demanded payment. He clenched his teeth and went to work at a factory, exhausting labor with daily overtime but room and board covered. He thought if he endured a few years and paid off debt, he'd be through the tunnel, but fate would not oblige. Before the debts were cleared, disaster struck. At work the plant required respirators, and the friend, feeling stifled, wore one when inspectors passed and slipped it off when no one watched. Then an accident, a pipeline ruptured, industrial gas leaked, and anyone without proper protection dropped on the spot. When he woke in the hospital, doctors said he had inhaled too much toxic gas and did not have long. With little time left, the first person he thought of again was the shop owner. He resented that the owner had refused to save him back then and envied the owner's current success, wife, child, everything stable, while he, mired in debt, would not live long and had accomplished nothing. In that extremity he found a chance to sprinkle poison powder into the bakery's flour. The toxin was a white powder indistinguishable from flour, and the owner had a habit of pouring supermarket flour into a big wooden bin in the storeroom. At noon the owner and temp usually stepped out for lunch, leaving no one to watch the shop. By his thinking, there was nothing worth stealing, so there was no need to guard it, but who knew someone else had designs, and seizing the chance he dusted poison into the flour, vowing to ruin the business. In the end 12 people ate tainted pastries and nearly died. They were saved only by timely treatment. As for that friend, before the law could judge him he closed his eyes for good. Word had it he planned from the start to poison the flour and then die quietly so the police would never find the culprit and the bakery would shoulder most of the blame. Unfortunately for him, the police moved swiftly and traced it in short order. After reading the report, Van Hahn sighed. Is it the environment warping people? Lately it seems everyone is going mad. Another day passed, and under Ma Chi-siu's arrangement Van Hahn smoothly started her job. But before she could finish even a single day she received a notice that the company would hold a welfare trip and everyone would go traveling. Ma Chi-siu asked whether she wanted to join or take a few days off and return to work afterward. Based on past experience the boss might vanish after the trip, so Van Hahn firmly chose to go and Ma Chi-siu readily agreed. Back home she solemnly told her family, "I'm going on a trip, at most a week I'll be back. You'll be home alone so be good and don't miss me too much." Tu Due fell silent, wanting to crawl into the suitcase to sneak along. He lowered his head and turned away, too sad to speak. "Don't be like that, give me a smile." Van Hahn leaned in, pressed his lip corner up with a finger, and a reluctant, insincere smile appeared. "After your return you must set aside a whole day just for me," he bargained. "Okay," she agreed at once, "any day is fine. After dinner we'll stroll the streets." "No problem, next time you travel, bring me with you." "Huh?" Van Hahn pondered, suspicious, then poked the little pup's chin and sternly questioned, "Are you acting out my script?" Clearly not planning to block her at the door but pretending to be hurt to win benefits for himself, Tu Due sighed inwardly. The partner was too clever and saw through any little trick. He kept an innocent face, hugged Van Hahn, and whined pitifully, "I can't bear to part with you." Van Hahn was speechless. What fault does a little pup have? He simply did not want to stay home alone. If she did not leave the house he would not need to act at all. "The trip is settled. When I'm back we'll play around the city on the weekend," she promised. He buried his head, the smile at his lips impossible to hide. He could feel he was loved. At the end of April the weather was furnace hot. The sun hung high and baked the earth. On the bus even when wind passed it brought no coolness, only waves of heat. "Tell me, isn't the weather too strange this year?" A big sister a little over 40 fanned her forehead with a small hand fan. "At this time last year we had just entered summer. This year it feels like those 2 hottest months have already arrived. It's already 40 degrees Celsius now. If it rises further how are we supposed to live?" "Work hard to raise the body," a tribute. An aunt over 50 offered a suggestion that made sense in theory and was hard in practice. "My body attribute is 1.5 now. Still okay, I can endure heat and feel better than last summer." The big sister in front rolled her eyes. "It is not that I do not want to raise it that I have not raised it. When I studied, it is not that I did not want to enter the Federation's top 3 universities that I did not enter. All this talk is pointless. The weather was so hot even arguing felt exhausting. She suspected she was getting old, with poorer stamina and weaker tolerance. Otherwise, why were the young ladies so energetic while an aunt over 50 also looked bright as she admired the scenery outside? So age clearly was not decisive. The big sister leaned back to slack off for a while. Van Han sat in a corner, face tilted to the window like an inkwash painting. Nearby girls nudged one another, yet no one dared to speak up. Then they dove into the company group chat and spammed like crazy. Goodness, who is that little lady? Why do I not recognize her? Is she really from our company? Did she get on the wrong bus? This bus is chartered by our company. Everyone is traveling. The company has several departments. Conclusion: it's normal you don't know people from other departments. You insult the professional cultivation of a face chaser. As long as someone in the company looks good, regardless of gender, I know them. Within a minute I must find all her info, yet after all that no one knew more. Over 10 minutes later someone dropped a hint. Her name is Van Han, a psychic-type superpower user, finally a lead. The group got teary with gratitude. Tell us in detail, the sharer said. Besides that I don't know. Vice President Ma brought her in, said she stopped him from buying baked flatbread and saved his whole family. I helped process her onboarding, right the day before departure. Oh my, the flour poisoning flatbread case. That shop's business was booming. I heard if a passerby hadn't stopped it in time, at least over 100 people would have suffered. Oh, pretty sister with a kind heart. You're a young lady and you admire pretty ladies every day. What kind of hobby is that? Can you be normal? Beauty is genderless. Appreciating a pretty sister is like appreciating beautiful mountains and rivers. Thinking I can see her at work gives me more energy every morning. Usually I can't lift heavy things, but if there's a fire and pretty sister is inside, I'll hoist her and run. Believe it. The sharer was speechless. She comforted herself that after months of danger it was normal to have taut nerves. Being a bit loopy was fine and did not affect overtime. I want to hit on her. How do I even start a conversation? Life is short, seize joy, be bold. I support you. I just want to chat with pretty sister. What's wrong with that? I want to exchange feelings with a psychic-type superpower too. What's wrong with that? The group fluttered with messages. The sharer decisively went offline and ignored them. They secretly peeked at Van Han, 1 glance, 2 glances, 3 glances, and were caught by the person herself. Van Han felt heat at the nape, turned back, and caught a curious gaze evaluating her. The girl froze in panic at being caught. Van Han smiled kindly. She smiled at me. She must want to get to know me. Whatever, I'm going. The lively chatters were stunned. In broad daylight, how drunk are you? You're babbling. If the genders were flipped, I'd be calling the police. A smile means she wants to hit on you. Did your teacher not teach basic politeness to strangers? As a social phobic, when I don't know what to say I start smiling blankly. I suspect the little lady was embarrassed from being stared at and forced to social smile. Amid the debate the girl sat down beside Van Han and, mustering courage, asked, Little sister, I heard you're a psychic-type superpower who stopped Vice President Ma from buying poison flatbread. Is that true? I happened to run into it while out shopping, Van Han answered. A de facto admission. Stars lit in the girl's eyes. Saving so many people is amazing. Hearing them mention the flatbread case, more people leaned over. I read the news. The poisoner was broken in mind, clearly with little time left yet still ruining a friend's business. If you owe money, you owe people, not your grandchildren. I once lent someone money and she bought celebrity merch, attended concerts, and got the newest fruit brand phone yet would not repay. When reminded, she even got mad as if I clung to her for a little cash. New customers were the most pitiful. They just wanted flatbread and ran into this urgent mess. Luckily casualties were small, only a dozen or so injured, and with timely use of a special antidote there were no sequelae. The world is rough and weirdos are many. Be careful when you go out. Van Han sighed. Not long before the incident I even bought bread at his place with no problem. After a short stroll outside I came back to find it had become poisonous. What an unjust mishap. Wow. That sounds scary, several exclaimed. The first girl then realized something was off. Clearly she sat first and spoke first, yet it turned into everyone chatting with Van Han while she could not get a word in. If you're scared, then stop listening or you'll have nightmares. She glared at those crowding in. They giggled and cut in. Scared or not, we should listen. The world is dangerous. Knowing possible accidents helps prevention. Exactly, the girls clustered and chirped. The mood quickly grew friendly. Van Han watched their lively bickering, found it amusing, and her mood shifted for the better. The bus drove for several hours and stopped at a hotel. Turn in early tonight. We climbed the mountain at dawn to watch the sunrise, Ma Chi-su announced loudly. Complaints thundered at once. We're on vacation and can't sleep in. What a demon. Had I known I'd have stayed to work overtime. I don't want to see the sunrise, can I skip it? Please cooperate with company arrangements, you will have free time later.
With that, Ma Chi-siu led the way into the hotel, clearly not open to
bargaining. Getting up early to hike and watch the sunrise is called a welfare trip, someone laughed, too drained to argue. Hurry, take your luggage to your rooms and tidy up, sleep early tonight, if you can't resist then at least make yourself less miserable. True, everyone resigned themselves and accepted the plan. On Van Han's first day away, someone already missed her. Tu Due sat at his desk with vacant eyes staring at nowhere. What are you thinking about? Are you not going home after hours? The supervisor passed by and asked. Tu Due glanced at the clock and realized it was indeed after work. Normally he watched the time closely and left on the dot without lingering a single second. But today no one was at home and going back was pointless. I'm staying to work overtime today, anything you want me to do. The supervisor was thunderstruck. Voluntary overtime, you, He looked him over top to bottom and even wanted to send him to the hospital for a full exam. Best to scan the brain for changes. No need. Tu Due stepped away. You said voluntary overtime, how can you change your mind? The supervisor hurried to block him. There's plenty of work and we're short of hands. Even so, he was curious about the psychology behind it. What happened that made you take the initiative? Tu Due said nothing. Usually he left on time to see Van Han, since she had shifts he cooked at home full time, and they saw each other in the morning before work and at night after work. After switching to a government job, as long as he got off on time and went back quickly, their meeting time stayed the same, thus the career change did not affect him. By the same logic with Van Han not at home, whether he went back or stayed to work overtime was the same to him because he would not see the person he wanted to see, so he might as well stay and handle the backlog. The mental journey was too complex and he was too lazy to explain. He only said, let's work, then threw himself into it. The supervisor did not need to press further. Since he had caught a sturdy worker, he could just pile on tasks without caring about reasons. If you have bandwidth, do this, and this, and this, and this. Tu Due, expressionless, stuffed the thick stack of files back. Keep stacking them and I'll bolt in a fit. Believe it or not, the supervisor choked for a second, then take one batch first and start with that. The next day the sky was still overcast as if foretelling trouble, and Ma Chi-siu started knocking on doors one by one, urging everyone to get up and hike the mountain to watch the sunrise. The workers, jolted awake, looked at the deputy general with a faint murderous glare. Hurry up, everyone's already up, only you were late. He lied wide-eyed to spur them to wash up. A lazy one exposed him with a yawn and shuffled to the bathroom, while a new hire, gullible as ever, believed every word and rushed to brush and rinse. Once ready and down in the hotel lobby, they saw only about a third had arrived and realized they were actually early, so the killing intent grew stronger. Ma Chi-siu pretended to know nothing and shouted into the distance, hurry up, only waiting on you. The earliest crowd shot him side eyes, more than half were still missing. Where did only you come from? Van Han thought he truly was fearless. After about half an hour the whole company finally gathered. He counted heads, satisfied, swung his arm, move out. The group took the bus to the foot of the mountain and began the plodding climb. Some 20 minutes later they reached mid-slope and one person nearly plopped down. I cannot do this, really cannot. A companion propped them up and asked, didn't you dodge several mishaps and get boosts to your attributes? The girl, who felt half her life had leaked out, snapped, if my agility and physique had not increased I would not be whining only now. NK Books. I am a spirit type ability user, weak like a mage. The friend looked around helplessly and yelled, anyone strong in strength or agility or physique, help carry her. There were indeed people like that, only they were already carrying others, panting their way uphill. No help came, so guessing they were at the tail, the friend offered, then grit your teeth, push in one go to the top and rest hard later. The girl dropped on her rear and huffed, aye, today I am not seeing anything unless that damned guy comes and carries me himself. Whoever the damned guy was, those who knew would know. She pulled a bottle of mineral water and chugged a few gulps. The friend worried and stayed to keep her company, resting as well. Similar scenes played out everywhere, with the difference that some stood and continued after a breather while others sprawled and would not budge even if a king descended. Time ticked on, the sun slowly rose. The early light was gentler than noon and painted the clouds into a grand tableau. The girl still on the slope declared, you do not have to be on the summit to see the sunrise, staying down here is fine. The friend stifled a laugh, am I wrong? The girl argued, sitting here I can watch just the same and the way down is easier, if not for being only the two of them. With two more they could have set up a card table, even mahjong, far more fun than hiking. After a long wait no one came down and she grumbled, what are they doing up there? The
Friend said offhand, taking pictures, enjoying the view, playing cards, mahjong. She was speechless. This morning's schedule had only the climb. They would not be leaving soon. Do you still plan to go up? The friend asked innocently. The girl fell silent. Not going meant just sitting and waiting. Going meant perhaps reaching the top only for others to head down. Such a dilemma. She shut her eyes, struggled a while, then fumed. Forget it. I will sit here, play on my phone, and wait, just. As they predicted, people on the summit were taking photos and sightseeing and doing all sorts of leisure. Van Han strolled through the woods, the sun hung bright overhead, birds chirped all around. Now and then co-workers' laughter drifted by, and a thought flickered. She wondered if Tu Due was busy and whether a video call would be convenient. Before she could think further, a hunch tugged her gaze toward the deeper trees. She frowned and walked a few steps that way. Soon a scorched smell slipped into her nose. On a mountain of greenery, how could there be burning? She went on and saw brush and grass already aflame and a faint black smoke wafting in the air. The situation came all at once and Van Han spun and ran while shouting, "Fire!" In the distance, co-workers were still clustered snapping photos, oblivious to the danger creeping close, and upon hearing the cry they did not flee first but asked one another, "How could a mountain be on fire? Impossible." "I do not smell smoke," a few who understood yelled. People do not joke about this. Run. The most vigilant sprinted like the wind and left only a voice. Signal is bad up here. I am going down to call the fire brigade. Reminded, the crowd scrambled downhill. Months of experience had taught them that in this damned world anything could happen. Caution never kills, foolish optimism only hurts, and a mass of people went rushing down. The girl who refused to climb sat on a boulder and, seeing them panic, asked blankly, "What happened?" as if it were an evacuation. The first to arrive gasped and said in broken phrases, "Heard there is fire up there." The girl was startled and grabbed her phone. "I will call the brigade." The friend asked for details. "Is it big? How are the others? Are they running?" The runner said, "They reacted slow and are behind. I reacted fast, high agility, so probably first down. Big or not I did not see, only heard shouting. I figured the mountain is all trees and there is no water source. If it really catches, it is hard to fight. No one would joke about a wildfire, so go down first, protect ourselves, then call the pros." The others agreed and began to wait. After roughly 10 minutes, co-workers came down in succession. Now looking up they could clearly see black smoke. Van Han stood amid them and let out a barely audible sigh, and once people dispersed she returned to the ignition point to try to fight the flames. But with no tool at hand and the blaze growing, in moments it spread sideways. Seeing she could not stop it, she gave up and ran for the foot with the rest. Sirens wailed. Firefighters arrived and went to work. Co-workers buzzed. "What the heck? We came to hike for a sunrise and got a wildfire. What rotten luck. How did it start? Did someone smoke? Whoever did it must be punished, or the whole summit might have burned if not caught early. The consequences are too serious." After more than an hour the fire was finally out. A staffer asked, "Who discovered it first?" "Me." Van Han stepped out. "I am a spirit type ability user. While strolling on the summit I suddenly felt like checking and as soon as I looked I saw fire." The staffer breathed easier. "Lucky you found it early, or it would have been a big incident." Ma Chi Siu pushed through, furious. "Comrade, can you tell me the cause? Such a disturbance. I must find the person." Someone tossed a mineral water bottle that still had water. A clear bottle with water can focus sunlight and likely ignited dry leaves and grass, the staffer said. At that, co-workers quickly declared, "From start to finish I did not throw any bottle. Mine is still in my pack." "Not me either. I tossed an empty. The lazy girl today found her flare. Do not look at me. I did not even go up the mountain." Nearly everyone took turns asserting innocence. Then a young man's eyes dodged, and since the company had no shortage of spiritually sensitive people they grabbed him at once. "Kong Tui, why so quiet? Was it you?" "I did throw a bottle I had not finished," he muttered in defense. "But I threw it into the trash. I did not litter," the staffer replied. "Coincidentally the bottle found lay beside the trash. Maybe you missed, maybe it bounced out." Kong Tui turned to stone. "So that could happen," the staffer fumed. "We have said it again and again, do not toss bottles that still have water. If a forest burns that is deadly." Kong Tui refused to admit it. "Not necessarily me, maybe someone else did. The same and now hides in the crowd watching. Rest assured, if it was you, you will not slip away, and if it was not, you will not be wronged. The ignition point is some distance from the bottle, and with the wind the flames did not sweep that way, so the bottle remained. A drunk from bottle retains genetic traces. Once we compare we will find the owner." Unease churned inside him but he still argued, "Wait for the results. For now there is no proof, all is conjecture." Co-workers whispered. Was he not the one earlier shouting that whoever did it must be punished and the impact was vicious? Yes, now it is him. Wonderful, a performance of scolding himself.
even if unintentional there can still be punishment, right? Not sure, but the deputy is truly angry. The carefully planned itinerary is in shambles. It is not like he only now learned accidents or many danger during travel is normal, true, but when planning people hope for peace, up there I did not expect death to be so near. Wildfire comes out of nowhere. Without someone leading I would have stood there like a fool. Same here, and we still have to thank the deputy for training the newcomers, otherwise the odds would have been grim. I have been tagging along in several instances and though the drills increase I feel no progress. Amid the murmurs Kong Tui grew paler and a bad premonition thickened. Because of the incident the day's plan was cancelled and they waited at the hotel. By dusk the report came. The bottle was indeed Kong Tui's. The dust settled and he felt like ashes, utterly desolate. The police let him out while comforting. If you did not intend arson the penalty will not be heavy, just held for a few days. That is still being held. He was not comforted and trudged away. Machisiu tried to soothe the rest. Long day, go rest. Tomorrow we have new plans. The workers were silent, suddenly wanting to follow Kong Tui to the station for some peace, especially the girl, who refused to climb and now felt tourism drained a person to the dregs. Better to stay in a cell for a few days. Van Han, having been close to the flames and tried to smother them, had smoke in her hair and the reek clinging to her clothes. Before anyone said anything she herself could not stand it and hurried back to wash. In midsummer, after 8 in the evening, Van Han finished tidying up and strolled to the buffet to eat. The cafeteria was sparsely populated, seats empty everywhere. She took a bowl of pork rib congee and a fried cake, found a spot, and ate at ease. Is this seat taken? Van Han looked up and saw a man standing before her, his face somewhat familiar yet not quite. No one, she answered casually, scooped another spoon of congee, and continued. The newcomers sat beside her and chatted with I. Smile. I'm Tit Duong, also an ability user of the spirit attribute. Before you came, whenever something happened, everyone liked to ask me. The meaning was that before she arrived, he was the most capable. Hello, Van Han replied politely, while wishing he would close his mouth so she could eat in peace. Yet though the hall was nearly empty, he insisted on sharing her table, clearly not coming with good intent. When did you awaken your ability? Could it be you just awakened and still haven't adapted to the change in status? He prattled. Van Han's hand paused, expression hard to describe, inwardly cursing him for checking household records and not letting people enjoy a meal. Don't misunderstand, I'm not here to investigate. He wore a mild, trustworthy smile. I only want to help you quickly adapt to life as an ability user. Van Han blinked. Why must one adapt? Becoming an ability user means taking a step ahead on the path of evolution and obtaining a higher status. Is only natural, he said without hesitation. Van Han fell silent, dinner suddenly unappetizing. Seeing her quiet, he thought he had persuaded her and grew more excited. Humans worship strength, it's imprinted in the genes. Those who are strong unite with the strong and their descendants' genes become superior. Those who are weak need to acquire the genes of the strong to change the talent of their descendants and raise their clan's standing. Now, ability users are exactly such strong ones. Even if you try to keep a normal heart, sooner or later people will chase you, exalt you, serve you like a deity. Can you truly claim your heart won't waver? Impossible. There is nothing impossible in this world. She had lived over 2 decades already and her ability was not newly gained. Too lazy to argue, she asked bluntly, what do you actually want to say? Ordinary people should have the bearing of ordinary people. Ability users should display the pomp of ability users, he said with awe. Deep air, blurring the boundary and letting the masses think all beings are equal does them no good. Van Han understood he had more to say and still asked, then what bearing should ordinary people have? She wanted him to say it himself. He kept smiling, his tone arrogant. Power is king. If one is ordinary, one should honestly offer wealth, kneel before ability users, and beg for rescue. Then how should ability users display themselves? Van Han asked, sitting among the clouds, watching the multitudes plead in suffering, lending a hand when in a good mood and leaving them when not. He answered, offer wealth and kneel to beg even if the ability user is indifferent, and they still won't turn hostile. Van Han found it hard to imagine people circling such thoughts. Humans are more foolish than you think. What I said can absolutely happen, he hinted. For example, she prompted. I heard you stopped Deputy General Manager Ma from buying poison cakes. He abruptly shifted topic. Yes, Van Han nodded. Stopping a purchase is hardly saving someone, he said coolly. Had you waited until the moment he lifted the cake to eat and then halted him a heartbeat before, that would be saving, and only then would he be grateful to you. Van Han caught on, deliberately letting things develop. Then, right before disaster, stepping in to stem the tide and become a hero in everyone's eyes. Your comprehension is high. He looked at her with approval. Perhaps you haven't been an ability user for long and don't know how to act. no matter, I can teach you. Van Han could no longer eat, set down her spoon, suppressed the urge to spring up and give them a beating, and kept her voice even. Are you so certain, or do you often do such things? He didn't answer directly. I am at least your senior, and in this regard I am more experienced than you. That's playing with fire. Van Han's gaze turned cold. If you fail, have you thought about the consequences? Even deities can't save everyone, he said carelessly. If one cannot be saved by me, it proves his fortune is thin and his fate carries this calamity. In an instant her fist clenched, nearly brawling in public. Your power far exceeds mine. You can enjoy higher treatment. He pivoted again, words laden with temptation, with strength far beyond the common. How could you be content with a lifetime of mediocrity? Why seek me? Van Han was baffled and speechless. If he refused mediocrity, he could scramble alone. Why drag others along? Ability users are few. We must unite to gain more voice, he said, every word revealing ambition. Van Han was silent for quite a while before saying, let me think. Fine. He did not press, finished and stood to leave. Watching his back, she slowly exhaled a few words. Those who play with fire will be burned. From the start she had not planned to indulge him. No matter how plausible his sophistry sounded, she never wavered. She did not reject outright, only to wait and see his ending. After a busy day she lay down early to rest. Before sleep she kept feeling she had forgotten a very important matter but could not recall. She slept soundly through the night. At dawn she yawned awake and suddenly remembered she had forgotten to video call Dewey, glanced at the clock and saw it was already work time. She decisively let it go. Forget it, tonight then. She washed up and went to the lobby to assemble. Ma Chi Siu announced the schedule. Today we take the bus to the outskirts, have a farmhouse group meal and barbecue skewers. When we arrive everyone disperses and acts freely, sightseeing, taking photos, fishing, or playing cards as you like. Quite a few employees sighed inwardly that the deputy general manager was, for once, playing the good person. Bored to death, Van Han still boarded the bus. The ride from the hotel to the farmhouse took over an hour, and though it could have been dull, the girls gathered and chattered on. Yesterday a fire safety officer told me that placing bottled water can cause a fire. I was stunned. How had I never heard that? Thinking they wouldn't joke about such a thing, I searched online at home, one girl said in fright. The result was quite a few similar cases, placing bottled water leading to a blaze, and the rate of occurrence is rather high. Another picked up. I heard bottled water doesn't burn and wondered what the mechanism was, how the fire starts. Why the bottle itself is fine. Later I learned that placing a water bottle can work like a magnifying glass. Didn't we do that experiment as kids? Under the sun focus the lens onto a point on paper and soon the paper ignites. Forest fires follow the same principle. Lately the sun is fierce, and if the angle hits just right it can set dry leaves alight. If it catches light willow fluff that drifts easily, a gust can carry embers everywhere. In other words, a point of ignition can be anywhere, and with bad luck all directions flare at once. The others were stunned. One imagined it and shivered. If we didn't notice in time, wouldn't we be trapped in flames on the mountaintop? Trees all around and thick smoke rolling in waves. By then one might not die by fire but by smoke inhalation. Another added flatly. Someone muttered, I wasn't scared by yesterday's blaze, but your descriptions are scaring me. At first it was nothing. The more I hear the more terrifying it feels, like we just found life in certain death and nearly lost it. Which is why we survived thanks to Van Han. A few fangirls stared at her with feverish adoration as if willing to smash into a wall for her. Van Han was speechless. Indeed, Tit Duong's despicable yet feasible plan preyed upon the crowd's mentality. I did nothing much, I merely sensed something was wrong, so opened flames, sounded the alarm, and told everyone to withdraw. She took no credit, the little fan refused. Don't say that, you did so much. How can you say you did nothing? Yes, others chimed in. You saved so many, that deserves an S rating. Truly amazing. Not an S rating but an A rating, Van Han said evenly, because it was indirect rescue and the fire was not large. Even without my warning, given a little time others would have seen the black smoke, noticed the flames, and run down the mountain. An A is also great. The little fan pouted proudly. In my heart you were top tier. Van Han could only smile. Riley, such a pity. Tit Duong cut in. An S rating grants many more attribute points, far more than an A. The others were not jealous at all and even nodded along. Sister Han saved so many. A surge of attribute points is only right. It's just that the dog system can't judge, mixing up A and S and making a wrongful ruling. Van Han held her tongue. She knew he was hinting that had she waited a bit longer to speak up she might have gotten an S for more points, trying to shake her resolve. With the very case that had just occurred, unfortunately her will was iron. Incidents are plenty, there will be no lack of chances to gain points. People being safe is what matters. Those words brought tears to a few fans. She makes me want to cry. Sister Han is truly kind. She doesn't even put attribute points in her eyes. this is the realm of a true boss. Are you really so carefree? Ti Duong still stared, as if to pierce her heart. Van Han thought she simply wanted to save people. Believe it or not, up to them.